Welcome into PA Power Wrestling here on Rockfin. Typically, we're coming here with a regional show like War Up on the WPIL, but instead, with such little time until the state tournament, we had to bring out all the guns and we had to do the Power Hour here tonight. Jeff, we got a lot of wrestling action to talk about here on the AAA side.
We got the four horsemen back from the stables. We got a couple new horsemen. We got Joe. We pulled him from the stables. He was mucking around in the hay, and we are like, you know what? Let's bring him out. And here we go. Yeah, Greg, Mitch, Joe. We've got a lot to dive into. Mitch almost had to save me this weekend. My car broke down in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Literally 2 miles from Liberty High School. I was going there before going to Jersey to stream the Zingo Nationals, the Zingo Open out in Jersey at Rutgers, and my car broke down. And if you ever need some car service in Bethlehem, go to Superior Auto. If you speak Spanish, you're much more likely to understand and get the work done that you need. But I'll tell you what, the quality was amazing. So shout out Bethlehem. But yeah, we're ready to rock and roll here, AAA style.
Well, let's dive right in, gentlemen, if we can, to 107 pounds. The state brackets are out, and we have our top seeds. At 107, at the very top, we have the West champ, Nicholas McGarity from Peters Township. The number 2 is the South Central champ, Sam Culp from Redland. Number 3 is Chase Williams, the Southeast champ. And number 4 is Braden Wenrich of Northampton, the Northeast champ. And apologize if I mess up a few of these names, but Jeff, we'll start off with you as far as the region champs and where we want to kind of start this conversation.
Yeah, I mean Braden Wenrich has been number one in the state from the start. So he was one of our top incoming freshmen, top 5 guy, Super 32 medalist, multiple time PJW Keystone State champion. He's basically the real deal, right? Spent some time up at 114 this year. Took a couple losses up there, but ever since he's been down to 107 has just looked pretty dominating. Mitch and I got to see him a little bit this weekend. So, unfortunately, he's on the same side as the top seed, Nick McGarity. So right now, and you look at the state rankings, Wenrich and McGarity are 1 and 2 in the state. And McGarity's been number 2 basically ever since he dropped down to 107 for the postseason. So unfortunately, we could see a 1 versus 2 in the semifinals, but that's not to say the bottom half isn't. There's a lot of talent down on the bottom half. Sam Culp is a returning state qualifier. He's a senior, and he's never lost since coming down to 107. He's undefeated down at 107. Again, took a couple losses up at 114. The question I have is for Joe Youngblood, and what the hell's going on in the Southeast with 107? I mean, like 1 week it was Schaefer Hoffman, then it's Chase Williams, and then you think Jacob Carr is going to be the guy. I mean, I couldn't make heads or tails out of who was going to come out of the Southeast, Joe.
Jeff, I couldn't agree more. Going our preview we did before regionals that I did worked on at paywrestling.com. I had Schaefer Hoffman winning it, truth be told, and he finished 6th. Jake Carr beat him again, beat him in the sectional tournament the weekend before. And then Dom Powell's been lurking all year too. Like he moved down to 107. Dom Powell is a sophomore, returning state qualifier from Upper Dublin. Is kind of lurked and made the final. Had a was in control of the regional final with Chase Williams, kind of stopped wrestling towards the end of the match, and Chase Williams was relentless in his attack in the third period, pulling out the win, getting a takedown late to win 8-6. Chase Williams has been around the whole year too. Again, he's 36-2 for a reason. He's got no like huge wins, but he's in aside from the Powell match. All credit to that. But he has definitely shown his grit and toughness as the season's gone on. I would say, guys, the 5th place guy, John Sagata from Council Rock South. He's a a guy that just finds a way to stay in matches. And, you know what when
A
we look at
typical
like
Council Rock South wrestler, I would say.
right, you know,
Yeah.
exactly, 100%. And again, he's been through the grinder of that schedule. You know, he's been in big matches, so the moment wasn't too big for him being his first regional tournament, where he was expected to be a point scorer for them. And then, of course, one of the Kane brothers from Council Rock North, AJ, had a great tournament, finishing fourth. You know, he's another guy. That Council Rock North schedule was no joke. So he's been through the ringer as well, wrestling all different weights in that lineup. That was all hands on deck for them making it to the district championship and the district duels. So he's been moving all over that lineup throughout the season. So a lot of seasoned vets. We have a lot of depth in District 1 in this weight class. You know, I'm not sure.
I know you want to shout that out. We all talk shit on the District 1 guys sometimes, so I appreciate you giving that shout out. Like, we're really deep here at 107, guys. Don't count
It's
us
not
out.
every weight class, and I'm not. No, I'm not gonna say that every weight class. Believe me, I'm not. But this is one where we have a lot of quality guys. You know, no
Yeah.
one's
No,
gonna threaten to make the top of the podium right now, but a lot of guys that are gonna push. I think it's realistic for that 2 medals. 1 to 2 medals comes out of District 1 in this weight class. You know,
I would agree with
out
you
of the
there.
wrestlebacks, of course.
For sure.
What's that?
I would agree with you. Greg, the Southwest, kind of similar to the Southeast in a lot of ways. There's a lot of depth there. When you look at the state rankings, the Southwest I keep on calling the Southwest. The West region had a bunch of depth. Outside of Nick McGarity, who had been kind of solid the last couple of weeks, you could have thrown a Tommy Gretz, Michael Johnson, Zach Rehack, all in a bag. Bo Fennick as well, all in a bag, and you don't know who was going to come out on top. What did you see this past weekend at Cannon Mac outside of McGarity kind of, you know, not saying he rolled to it, because Andrew Alexander had that was a really tight match.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually really impressed with Andrew Alexander. I thought he wrestled extremely well all weekend. It was a scoreless bout with Fennick when he ended up pick up I think it was a takedown to a fall for Fennick, or on Fennick. But he's got I wouldn't say he's like particularly taller than most, but he's got long arms. So what I noticed a lot of is, you know, guys were trying to spin around behind him, and he was able to get the leg and then was able to suck it in and then be able to get a takedown of his own. He did it against Michael Johnson a couple of times. I think that's how he was able to pull in Fennick and get the fall against him. He just looked really good all weekend. And even against McGarity, he picked up a reversal and then 4 near fall points, and that's what made it tight. He was actually leading that match till probably the late half of the third period, and then McGarity got a couple of late takedowns to win it. I think the one thing with McGarity is he's been able to grind out every single win. Even when he was losing against Alexander, you never felt like, okay, he's out of this match. Like, you felt like he was going to come back and win, and he did. But the rest of those guys, 2 through 5 here in the WPL, they can all beat each other, right? On any given day. They could be a different result any given week. And that's what makes it tricky about picking this weight class, right? Because I could easily see Zach Rehack turning it on and getting into the quarters and upsetting Sam Culp. I could easily see Tommy Gretz getting a couple of big wins. I know he's got a very tough matchup with Bethlehem Catholic's Nico Emili, but I could see him, pulling out a couple of upsets. I mean, honestly, Andrew Alexander, if he wrestles like he did this past weekend, I think he could even get to the semis, But again, it's a lot of like which guy's going to show up and produce their best results, because we've seen throughout this postseason that each wrestler's had their highs and lows so far, outside of McGarity, who has shown he's the best in this West region.
Mitch, going over to the Northeast, you got to see Wenrich and Emili wrestle. That was the second week in a row. Do you think Wenrich is the real deal, watching him and seeing how he controlled that match?
I really do. Like, I was real curious just to see how he's handling the weight cut, because like you said, he was wrestling up 113, 114 for most of the season, and I just wanted to see how that was going. I mean, we know the talent level, like you said, Jeff. He's one of your top-ranked freshmen coming into the year. We know what he's capable of, but I want to see that weight cut when you do it a couple weeks in a row. It's a tough thing to go out and do. So I thought he looked really good. I thought he looked really comfortable. I didn't think he really got a great challenge from Nico Emili, even though it was 4-0. It felt like the gap was wider than that. And the gap just keeps growing with him. He had beaten Jackson Max from Emmaus the week before, I think 10-3, and he put a tech fall on him this week at the Northeast Regional. Like he's the real deal. Like we know what he's capable of, and as long as he's comfortable and doing his weight cut right, like I think he's the guy here. I really do. I think everybody's kind of chasing him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say him being number one all season. But McGarity is, I mean, he's a returning sixth place finisher, right? He's definitely in that hunt and in the mix. I agree with, I think Greg, you were the one who mentioned it, that Tommy Gretz, Nico Emili first round match is a huge match. This was at one time a top 3 matchup in the state. And if you look at the current rankings, Emili comes in number 3 and Gretz is number 9. But again, at one time, Gretz was all the way up at 2 and 3 during the season. So that's a first round matchup that I definitely have highlighted. And you look at some of the potential quarterfinal matchups, Nick McGarity is going to have to go through the gauntlet. If he's going to make the finals, he's going to have to go through a gauntlet. I think he gets past, whether that's Jackson Max or Ezra Henning, I think he gets past that one. But if he gets Dom Powell's, as Joe said, a very solid sophomore who is a returning state qualifier. Harris Kieris of Central York is somebody who is dangerous and a senior at that weight class. I really like Jason Fouts from Paul Meyer, another senior. He was a Fargo All-American this year. Out in Fargo, he had a really good tournament there, and I think he opened up a lot of people's eyes, and he's been kind of in the mix. He actually, if you look at his results from this year, this is Jason Fouts, he has a couple big wins. He had beaten Cam Smith from Trinity, who I know it's in AA, but he just finished third in the Southeast region himself. Javion Chambers from Highlands, who was third in the Southwest region. Michael Johnson, 15-6. He lost to Schaefer Hoffman, 6-2, but he came back and he beat Andrew Alexander. He beat him 9-6. He lost by fall to Chase Williams. So a lot of these guys, I feel like it's back and forth. Anybody can win on any given day. I could see Carr winning that one. And likewise, I think Wenrick is going to have a really hard path, whether that's Johnson or Sagata in that first match, and then Fouts or Carr, and then likely McGarity potentially. So I have to say, if I was in this bracket, I would probably want to be on the bottom a little bit more than the top, right? Does anyone disagree?
No, not at all.
I mean, you have landmines everywhere, right? I mean, Chase Williams is a guy who I don't want to have to see early, right? That Andrew Alexander and Cale Mueller match, I give Alexander, and Greg, you're right. I think he is taller than most of his opponents, and I think he is somebody that, because of his length, he can upset people. Tommy Gretz and Nico Emili, like that's a match that potentially that could be a finalist right there. But I'm not going to look past Sam Culp too, another senior who's been battle tested before, been to the state tournament before. I really like that AJ Kane Zach Rehack match too, the pigtail round. That's going to be a good one.
I think this weight is just so hard to predict, right? I think you got to feel good about Wenrich and McGarity getting to the semis, battling it out, and the loser probably coming back for a third. I think outside of that, figuring out the rest is really going to be a crapshoot, and it's really truly who's going to show up this weekend.
What you guys want to make your picks? Who do you got in the finals? Greg, I'll start with you. You got anybody you particularly like in the finals?
I think I'd like to go. I know everybody else is going to go Wenrich, so I'm going to go McGarity for Peters to get to the final. I think he gets it, finds a way to get it done. It's, definitely a long shot since you guys have told me so much about Wenrich.
I don't think it's a long shot. I'm just saying it's. I mean, don't try to make it sound like it's a long shot. He's a returning state medalist.
The on the bottom half. I think it just depends what Tommy Gretz shows up, to be honest with you. If it's the one that showed up to the WPL tournament, I think Tommy Gretz gets in the finals. If it's the one that showed up this past weekend, I think it's Nico Emili. So I really think that winner of that match is in the final.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I like Wenrich on the top half of the bracket. I like a District 11 rematch in the finals here. Nico Emili coming out of the backside. I mean, again, I think the gap between the two grew a little bit last week, but I like what Amelie does against everybody who's not Braden Wenrich. I think there's something there. I love that first round matchup, Cale Muller, Andrew Alexander. Muller's been in I don't know how many matches with the top ranked guys in the state this year, so he understands what those matches are like. I just need to see him win one. Like that's the big thing with him at this point. You need to see him win one at one point, but I think he's capable of doing that. But I like Wenrich over Amelie in the final.
Joseph?
I'm not ready to pull my homer card yet. I really do like Chase Williams. But I think I'm gonna have to agree with Mitch. I see Wenrich and Amelie. They're just two guys that kind of separate themselves. But yeah, no, I'm sticking with that. I'm gonna go with the District 11, all District 11 matchup. I think the proof's in their results so far, and I'm gonna say Wenrich for the win.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll agree with the last two. I'll stick with my rankings and say that it's going to be an all District 11 final with Wenrich winning it. But that's very low confidence. If I were to pick the confidence picks, this would be 107 would definitely be pretty low in the confidence. And Tommy Gretz, it just really depends on what Tommy Gretz shows up. I think you said that, Greg. He lost to Nico Mealy 8-0, right? This was at Team States. Was this at Team States or was this at, I can't remember if this was at Team States or if that was at yeah. So I mean, but I've seen him wrestle at a high level before, right? So while yes, it was a major decision the first time around a month ago, I wouldn't be surprised to see him win it here. So if that's the case, that opens it up. Sam Culp looks like he's in a better position. Chase Williams, Andrew Alexander. I mean, all those guys I think can make a push. So I agree with the sentiment that it's a little bit unpredictable. So we shall see. Let's move up to 114, Greg.
Yeah, 114. The top seed is the Southeast champion Dominic Morrison. The number 2 seed, Emilio Albanese of Emmaus. He's from the Northeast. The 3 seed, the South Central champ, Thunder Beard from Central Dauphin. And your 4 seed, Nico Capusta from Hempfield area from the West region.
Greg, I want to start with you with Nico Capusta. I mean, his father, Brian, was an undefeated state champion his junior year. Nico has a lot less matches than his father did his junior year, but he is 17-0 and he is a regional champ, right? He had a hell of a weekend, right? That was a fun weekend for him. Talk a little bit about Nico Capusta and what you've liked about him thus far.
Yeah, he's dominated. He's a lot of energy. He's somebody that's not afraid to mix it up with you, whether it's going upper body or, getting in on the legs and getting after attacks. You have to wrestle a full 6 minutes with Nico. He's just going to keep coming after you, being in your face. And he was able to hit a move on Gallegos and able to get a couple of back points as well on him. And that, helped propel him to the victory. But yeah, he wrestled great. And, it was a good, truly a fun match to watch between him and Gallegos, just like it was the week before with him and Dylan Barrett
right.
battling out as well. So Capusta's he's fun to watch. I mean, I think he's somebody that if you are just a casual fan going up to watch for the weekend, I would have my eyes on him because he puts up points in a hurry and he can go wrestle a number of ways.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. My gosh, when you look at this bracket, I mean, just breaking down this bracket, there's so many landmines and so many good early round matchups. And, we just talked about Nico Capusta. He's likely going to see Max Tansini, who, Joe, was, a point away from making it to state finals? I mean, it was ultimate tiebreaker, right? In the semifinals?
Lost 2-1 last year, yes.
So, I mean, this is a guy who has been right there. He has just not been able to figure out Clayton Walton ball in 2 straight weeks. I mean, so Max Tansini, who at one time, again, top 3 guy in the state, he's in a pigtail match, comes out and is going to get Nico Capusta right out of the gate should he beat Caden Boland. What's the Southeast here, Joe? I mean, you got the returning state champion in Don Morrison, but I can't make heads or tails out of the rest of this. Is Walton ball the real deal?
So I'll start by saying everyone's chasing Don Morrison.
Yeah.
I picked against him last year, and I learned my lesson. No more picking against Don Morrison. He's one of those guys who just makes it look really easy. and everything's smooth with him. And he just, even in matches where he just finds ways to make it look exceptionally easy. What a true talent. Tansini, and again, he's got three of his five losses are in the last 2 weeks. Twice to Clayton Waltenbaugh from Souderton and Don Morrison in the semis at regionals. Um, like you said, Jeff, at one point, Tansini was ranked 2 in the state behind Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
And with Clayton Waltenbaugh, I don't know if it's what it is. He got pinned by him in the district semifinals 2 weeks ago, and then he got decision by him this week. So, where Tansini closed the gap, the best thing for Tansini is they're on opposite sides of the bracket. I'm going to say it's going to be an all District 1 semifinal in that top half.
Okay.
I think Tansini's just gonna find a way to put it together. He's just a brawler on top. He's gonna find ways to turn you. He's gonna get his chance there, whether he has to take it himself, take the choice himself. He's gonna put himself in position to be there. And just his on the mat wrestling is superior. As far as District 1, like Jaden Lee has been super impressive. I picked against him, and Jaden, if you're watching, or anyone in Radnor watching, I'm not picking against you again over any District 1 guys. As coach on the way out of regionals on Friday night, coach, one of his coaches came up and said, "Man, is he mad at you?" I had him losing to Gus Smith from Springford in the quarterfinals.
Going against your own rankings, by the way.
Yes, it is what it is. I just had a feeling, and I was wrong, and I openly admit that. Sorry, Jaden Lee. And then he avenged a loss to Clayton Waltenbaugh as well. He turned getting majored in the finals of districts into a major decision in the regional semifinals. So, and then you got Gus Smith lurking there. It's his second time at states. He didn't make it last year as a junior in that regional tournament last year when Jaden Lee upsets, the Ridley runner-up.
Curtis Nelson. He beat Curtis Nelson.
He beat Curtis Nelson, blew the bracket up, and Gus Smith was trending to get back, and it blew the bracket up, and he had to see Curtis Nelson wrestle backs. So what would have been probably a 3-time state qualifier turns into a 2-time state qualifier. But Gus Smith is dangerous. I think some of the guys locally in District 1 kind of maybe figured him out a little bit. So getting the state tournament gives him like a fresh start where he can go out and like wrestle his match, and where he's hasn't tussled with a lot of guys that he normally does. Well, so I think
Jaden Lee just didn't avenge that loss, Joe. I mean, he was teched by Waltenbaugh in I think it was 6 minutes, but he was teched by him. He comes back and majors him within a week, right? Or 2 weeks. I mean, it was. Yes. I mean, and this is something that's been happening all season as guys are going out and getting beat, and getting beat bad on paper, and then turn around and getting big wins. And I'll say this about Jaden Lee, like when I got to see him at the Midwinter Mayhem, I mean, I didn't really know what we were going to get. And he lost to Gavin Heaverly from Central Mountain, who was not making it to the state tournament. He got teched by Eli Herring. Just never really looked like he didn't just look himself, right? But looking at his results that he's had thus far, he looks like he could be in a really good position. But I would argue he's got one of the toughest first-round matchups here is in Dylan Barrett, a guy who is a state qualifier and has wrestled really well this year, other than against Nico Capusto, he's lost to twice now. I don't know, man, but District 1, you guys are repping. You got the top seed here, so we'll give you that, Joe. Mitch, in terms of the Northeast, Amelia Albanese was able to flip the script on Wilmot Kai. He had lost to him the week prior in districts, then flips it and gets the win this time. Those are two guys that have been back and forth. They're both returning state medalists. Kai was 7th last year. Albanese was 4th in the state last year. So, and those are two of the only returning state medalists here outside of Tansini. So I would say those two are definitely in the mix as well.
To me, Wilmot Kai's a big matchup problem because this dude feels like he's 7'4", and he's just all arms and legs. I mean, just long and lanky, and the reach that he's got makes him just such a pain in the butt to wrestle, and there's that sneaky strength with him too. Like he's solid in what he does. He's got an abundance of energy about him. Like he's so much fun to watch wrestle. And I don't know if Emilio Albanese would agree with that. I think he's a tough matchup for Emilio. Kai knocked Albanese off in the quarterfinals of the regional tournament last year.
Yep.
And then that script got flipped at districts last week. And then again here at regionals. And it was really a one takedown match. Albanese got a takedown in the first period. And then it was just kind of hold on for dear life, and Kai made a great run at the end of that match. And Albanese held on late to keep that win. Wilmot Kai to me is just a matchup problem. That's why I'm really interested in that potential quarterfinal against whether it's Nico Capusta or if it's Max Tansini. But even that first round match against Abram Schaefer is going to be fun to watch for Wilmot Kai. But that kind of quadrant of the bracket there to me is a lot of fun.
That's a tough quadrant there because you have two guys that were state medalists in that quadrant. Capusta was a state qualifier last year. Caden Bolin was a state qualifier. There's not another quadrant in 114 that is as deep as that one. Abraham Schaefer was in AA last year, was a regional medalist. So that to me is a really tough one. The one that kind of jumps out at me is like, I really don't know who's going to come out from this is the top quadrant on the bottom half. Thunderbeard, the South Central regional champion. He's the third seed there. And then, the fourth seed. And then you have Jaden Lee and Dylan Barrett, who we just talked about. That to me is probably the best first round matchup at 114 pounds. But honestly, like Thunderbeard has shown signs of like, man, this guy's gonna be really good. And then others, you're like, what are you doing, right? And he's a CD guy, so obviously I tend to inner root for some of those guys, but Thunderbeard's been close. If he can put it all together, and I always wonder how much that week off helps or hurts, right? South Central Regional has that week off between regionals and states. And I'm always curious to see like how guys react and really what they're doing in those 2 weeks, because honestly, I don't know who comes out. That could be Beard. I think it could be Barrett, and I think it could be Lee, to be honest with you. And on the bottom half, that's not much easier. You've got Gallegos, who's one of the best freshmen in the state, against a very dangerous Clayton Walton ball, with Albany sitting down there as well. So I really can't make heads or tails out of it. The ranker in me says to have the safe bet. Dominic Morrison's going to be in the finals on the top half, but on the bottom half, can Albany find a way? But I would not be shocked to see Thunderbeard make the finals, Dylan Barrett make the finals, Gallegos make the finals. If you told me those guys all made the finals, I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Well, and what's fun about the round of 16, right? We talked about the Southeast and everyone that they have, and the West as well. You're going to have Morrison potentially against Zach Franks. You're going to have Capusta potentially against Tansini. You're going to have Lee against Barrett, and you're going to have Gallegos against Walton Boss. So talk about great, matchups in the round of 16. I mean, these guys are going to go at it early and often.
Yeah, I mean, Barrett right now is number 8 in the state. Lee is number 12. Gallegos is number 7. Even Phil Montez from Cumber Valley, he's a senior, had a good season thus far. Honestly, Max Tansini is the guy I want to watch his body language. I want to see what he's like before the mat and on the mat, and just kind of see where he's at, because I mean, let's be honest, like he could go out there and bust up this bracket too. Him and Dom Morrison have been very, very close for the last 2 years. I know the point differential. What was it, Joe, this time? Was it like
it was 9-5 on Saturday. It was or 9-4. It was 4-4 late on, and Morrison kind of busted it open, but
right.
it was pretty tight for probably 2/3 of the match.
Right. And so I mean, Tansini's right there. It's just a matter of getting it all together. So all right, let's go picks here. Greg, we'll go around the quad box. Greg, what do you think?
Always starting with me. All right, I'm gonna go with Morrison to make it to the final against Gallegos, with Morrison repeating as state champ.
Gallegos, I like it. Okay. Do you have a particular who would be in the semifinals against Morrison? You picking? I'm assuming you're picking Capusta.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think he's wrestling really well, and so I got to roll with my guy in the West with Nico Capusta for sure. And you know what? I'm gonna go with Dylan Barrett as well. I think he's very underrated, and I think that him and Capusta wrestle a very similar style. They're gonna be in a lot of matches, because of the way they wrestle. Sometimes they may give up unnecessary points that could cost them a match, especially in the tournament like the state championships. But at the end of the day, I think both guys are wrestling extremely well, and I could see both those guys make it to the semis.
Mitchell, what do you think?
I like Morrison coming out of the top half as well. More so, gosh, I don't want this to come off the wrong way. Of all the tough quadrants, I think he's got the least tough quadrant. I think there's matches there that he should win.
Yeah, that's
he's
fair.
Not flashy. Yeah, he's not flashy about the way he goes about things. He just gets the job done. And like Joe said, at this point, I'm not gonna bet against him. Just the way he does things. But I like Max Tancini in the semis against him, and I think that's a real barn burner between those two. I do like Emilio Albanese coming out of the bottom half of that bracket. I think that win last week against Wilmot Kai gave him a little confidence that's going to push him this week. I like Albanese coming out of the bottom half with Morrison winning it in the finals.
Okay, Joe.
I kid you not.
Jaden, you're picking Jaden Lee to win it, right?
Mitch and I did not coordinate any of this ahead of time. I think that's top semi is gonna be Tancini Morrison, as I did say earlier. Bottom semi, I'm gonna say it's gonna be Thunder Beard, and the winner of the Gallegos Albanese match, I think, is the one guy that goes not only into the goes to the semis, but we'll also go to the finals. If I'm gotta make the choice right here, right now, I'm gonna go with Albanese because he's been there before. Coming off the big weekends win in Northeast region, I'm gonna go an Albanese Morrison final, and Morrison winning it, his second state title, becoming the Hatboro's first two-time state champ.
First time, two-time state champ. All right, on his way to 4 potentially. Here's a few tidbits. So the Midwinter Mayhem, a lot of these guys saw each other. Emilio Albanese was there. And he's had some really good matches. He lost to Sam Wolford, and he beat Nick McGarity by tech fall 20-4. Let's just keep that in the back of our mind. Somebody who we just said was a top seed at 107 pounds. He lost to Don Morrison 1-0. That was at Midwinter Mayhem. He lost to Gallegos 4-1 in tiebreaker 2, which, by the way, you can watch all those matches on Rockfin if you go back to the Midwinter Mayhem. So he already has a loss against Gallegos, right? I tend to agree with, I can't remember who you all picked. I'm kind of liking Gallegos to come out from that bottom half. I could see Thunderbeard making it out, and Gallegos winning that to get. Gallegos is just so stingy. He's beaten so many really tough guys by 1 point. He made the Powerade finals by winning a couple close matches by 1 point. And that can frustrate the hell out of some guys. So I'm going to have him making it to the finals against Don Morrison. And again, that was a close match before. I don't know. So I'm picking Thunderbeard, as much as that pains me, because I'm a huge Dylan Barrett fan. Joe, it sounds like you're a big Jaden Lee fan. I can't believe you didn't pick him to make the finals, but I guess you'll hear from him and his coaches when.
Hey, Jeff, have we ever answered a question from the live chat on Facebook before?
Yeah, we've answered questions before.
Okay,
What's the question?
Rob Walco has a question.
He's a man of institutions. What's he asked? What's his question?
Many institutions. His question from the chat. Can Joe or anyone else share who was inducted into the District 1 Hall of Fame this year? Thanks in advance.
Rob is such a troll, man. I love Rob trolling the District. I mean, District 1, to be fair, District 1 Wrestling Hall of Fame, I mean, they induct 20 a year. And
this year was just 4. Just 4 this year. Small class.
Well, typically it is upwards of 15 to 20. And table workers get invited. Mat maids get invited. It's mascots have been put in, I believe. Just saying.
This year, a few Ryan Resnick. I'm not Ryan Resnick. Derek Galata. I just saw Ryan Resnick's watching.
Shout out
Derek Galata
Derek
from UT
DG,
Roberts.
man.
Yes,
DG.
went in. 4-time state place winner. Tim Seislov, Hall of Fame coach from Springford, who
Yep,
recently
Springford.
retired. Well deserved. Rob Schetzline, coach from North Penn, coached 3 state champs in his time there. And I'm trying to think. Brian Kennerly from Upper Darby, state
Yeah,
champ.
Upper Darby State. Yep.
And
Super 32
wrestler
champ as
UVA.
well. All
Exactly.
right. You
So,
guys induct some
it was
people. I
it
got
was
I
it was
get
a
it. I get it.
really it was a good class this year.
I wish
so.
I had a mute button. I wish I could just cut him off like mid sentence. You know, like if you let Joe, you keep me posted on if Rob Watko has any other questions.
Will do. I'll make sure.
I listen. 114 is a great weight. I can't wait for it. But let's move on to 121, or we're gonna be here to midnight. All right.
Yeah, let's roll to that. 121.
Let's do
South
it.
Central champ Elijah Hewitt of Northeastern is your top seed. West champ Braden Weaver of Altoona, number 2. Northeast champ Reef Dillard of Bethlehem Catholic, number 3. And Southeast champ Braden Sigel of Downingtown West is number 4.
One of you has a smoke alarm out, and you're going to need to change that battery before the end of the week, or I'm calling the fire marshal.
That is Greg.
I'm definitely going to go as soon as I got done talking. I was going to go at least take it out so we didn't have to hear it.
Please do. Thank you. Man, 121 really opened up since Landon Sidden got injured, right? Returning state champion goes down with a hand injury. He gets it late in the season at the team tournament. So, good news for all these guys because it really opens up the bracket here. Elijah Hewitt from Northeastern is somebody that probably a lot of guys, maybe Northeastern's not the biggest wrestling school out there, but Elijah Hewitt is a senior. He's been to the state tournament twice before. I think he's somebody that is very dangerous. He can win matches by big margins, and he can pin you from anywhere. But this one, for me, the top half, and Mitch, I want to start with you because the Northeast region here was just kind of out of control. Reef Dillard turns the table. Him and Nick Salomon, was that 5 times they wrestled this year? I know he won the first one. And then
I know it's 6 all time. I don't know
6 all time,
at
least 4 times this season because Salomon won twice. Now Dillard won twice. Are we going to see back-to-back Dillards win state championship here, Mitch? I don't know.
I don't know either. I really do think, just talking to Reef Dillard after the match, and you can see the interview on PA Power Wrestling that I did with him. Like it felt like something clicked for him, and it was weird as I was kind of looking up things before the finals that he's never won a postseason tournament before until last week. And now it's only 2 years, but I get, but for the what he came in with, the expectations that he came with, obviously what his brother's done, which is unfair to him. But he hadn't won a postseason tournament before. And it feels like getting to overtime with Nick Salomon, who had won the last 2 matchups in overtime against Reef Dillard, winning that match, just something may have clicked in him, and just the confidence level just seemed to kind of shoot through the roof a little bit. And I like where that kind of puts him mentally heading into the state tournament. That's a tough quadrant again. Kevin Mylart of Cedar Cliff, and I hope I didn't butcher his last name. That potential quarterfinal matchup is really intriguing to me. I love what Braden Weaver from Altoona has done. Obviously, the number 1 ranked guy in the state this year, and you could see him over the last 2-3 years building to this.
He beat one of your District 4 guys too this year at Midway Mayhem.
He did. Absolutely. And yeah, I like where Reef Dillard is mentally heading in to the state tournament. I think he believes that he's capable of going down here and winning some big matchups. So that I think that was a big one for him.
Yeah, I'll echo what you said about Braden Weaver. He's somebody who, as a freshman, was a state medalist, finished 5th in the state at 107 pounds, and then comes back last year, is not able to get back on the podium. But this year, he's been on a mission. Greg, what did you notice about him in the finals at the region, the West region, that impressed you?
Yeah, I just thought he was very consistent with his approach and always being able to get points on the board. He majors, Nolan Rice of Connellsville. He ends up in the finals. He was up big against Leo Joseph. Joseph got a couple of late takedowns to make it a closer 10-8 score, but he was really in control that entire match. Never really was in danger throughout the entire weekend. He looked very impressive throughout. And so, I like the way he's wrestling right now, and I think he's going to, be tough to beat here in the state tournament.
And I think he's in a favorable quadrant too. I think he's not saying it's an easier one because Will Yordi and Marco Loss are both solid wrestlers, but I think Weaver's beaten Brock Rothermel, right? That should end a story, full stop, right? Weaver is legit, right? So I think he has a very favorable path to the semifinals in that bottom half. That quadrant above him with Reef Dillard, you have Moliert and Brady Coleman. I think Moliert and Dillard could be an absolute war. Two highly ranked sophomores. Moliert's somebody who made a lot of noise as an eighth grader coming into the season. And I tell you what, that top half with Salamone, like him and Hewitt, if they end up facing each other, that could be a really good matchup. Leo Joseph, a returning state medalist. He was eighth in the state last year. He's headed to Navy. Somebody who I think has just been really consistent all season. But Joe, District 1, you and I have had a hard time kind of seeing eye to eye on 121 a lot of times. It seems like 121 was just a crapshoot. Not as particularly deep District 1 weight, but there's a lot of quality there.
Right. This was a weight class like you said. We went back and forth, a lot of hemming and hawing over where to put guys. This has a lot of tough kids, but it just different than other weights in District 1 in the Southeast region, just lacks a star. Brody Coleman was the top ranked guy for most of the year. Then he gets unseated. Braden Siegel had a great postseason run to the regional title. But he's, like you said, when you just talked about the bracket itself, you didn't mention one District 1 guy, and that wasn't by chance. It wasn't, any other reason. Then it was kind of like a reality that there's just not a guy that's gonna blowing one's doors off here. I think one guy's gonna grind it out and find his way in the podium in 7th or 8th place. If I had to put money on it, I couldn't tell you. I would say it's any one of Siegel, Coleman, or Loss. Yeah. Because they've been pretty consistent all season long. Siegel coming on late, and really, like I said, going on a tear in the postseason. But like I said, I don't with confidence say, we as a region get maybe one medalist here.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think they're all in that same tier and they're all close. But I don't. They all have pretty tough first round matchups. I think Siegel obviously has the easier matchup, but Von Schmidt should, he's going to get Michael Worson, which shout out Michael Worson. If you guys don't know this already, Michael Worson was not even supposed to make the West region. He finished 8th in the WPIAL, right? His season's over. His career's over. He's at what did he sitting at? 98 wins when his season came to an end. Gets a call on Thursday, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to wrestle in the region?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course, absolutely." Comes back, makes weight because he obviously got a little bit heavy. Comes back, makes weight, wrestles all the way to 5th place in the region, higher than what he finished in the WPIAL, and qualifies for the state tournament. Guys, his season was over. I mean, his season was over, and he's at the state tournament. To me, that's an incredible story. It's just amazing. But yeah, so he's up there as well. Let's go picks, and we're gonna go reverse order here, so not pick on Greg. Joe, start with you, or actually, I'll start. I don't want to always be last. I personally really like Nick Salamone to come out the top. I just feel like him being a 2-time state medalist tells me a couple things. One, he knows how to get it done in the Giant Center, right? So I just think he's been wrestling really well this year, and he finds ways to win. He just does. And Reef Dillard, got him this last time, but I just think he's poised to have a good tournament. So I think Salamone's going to make it out. I think Leo Joseph makes the semifinals with Salamone winning that. I like Dillard to beat Moliert, and I have Weaver beating Yordi, and Weaver making the finals and Weaver winning it. So Weaver versus Salamone. All right, Joe, your turn. And you only have 30 seconds.
All right, I'm gonna go semifinals on the top half. Leo Joseph versus Salamone. I'm gonna roll with the senior Leo Joseph to make the final. And I got Reef Dillard and Weaver in the final on the bottom half, with Reef Dillard making the final. And the lineage from Bethlehem Catholic, the Dillard brother, gets it done in the final, state champ.
You're picking Reef Dillard. I like it. I like it. Sometimes you got to zig when everyone's zagging. Mitch?
I was hoping you wouldn't call on me. I love that quarterfinal. Nick Salamone, Elijah Hewitt. Elijah Hewitt 3-1 against state qualifiers this year, so it's not as if he hasn't seen good competition. I'm with you, Jeff. I like Nick Salamone there, like another veteran guy who's been there before. I know Elijah's been at states a couple times. I like Hewitt coming out of the top half of the bracket, probably against Siegel, maybe in the semifinals. I mentioned I like where Reef Dillard is mentally coming in. It just feels like his confidence is through the roof. But Braden Weaver's on a roll, and like we said, he's a guy who's been building up to this. I like Braden Weaver and to get to the final, and then I'm going to take Braden Weaver to win it.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Jeff. I like Salamone to get to the semi against Leo Joseph, and I like Salamone to win that match. And then Dillard and Weaver, with Weaver winning that match and also winning the state title. Also, I just want to give a quick mention, if you're looking for a dark horse medalist, Luke DeSantis of Penn Trafford has been wrestling great these last couple of weeks. I would not be surprised if he makes the award stand.
I like the dark horse pick there. None of us mentioned Elijah Hewitt, the top guy here and a regional champion, which is, I mean, I think that says a lot about how deep the state is, but Elijah Hewitt's dangerous. So I know most of us picked Salamone to make it, but I would not be shocked if Elijah Hewitt finds a way to make the finals either, because he's under the radar, I guess you would say. All right, 127, Gregory.
127, Northeast champ Keanu Dillard of Bethlehem Catholic at the top. South Central champ Aiden Herndon of Cedar Cliff, number 2. Number 3 is the West champ Santino Sloboda of Butler. And the 4 is the Southeast champ Quinn McBride of Penridge.
Whew. Man, a lot to unpack here. We got returning state champion Keanu Dillard, returning 2-time state champion Keanu Dillard. And man, Gabe Ballard, Santino Sloboda, Wenner, Herndon, a state. We have state first, state fourth, state sixth, state second, state seventh, all, and then Quinn McBride was state sixth. So I don't know how many that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 returning state medals here. I would say this has all the makings of one of the best brackets in the tournament. Santino Sloboda is the one where, the last year he did not have a good Hershey. He finished 4th as a freshman. Last year fell to 6th, right? Lost to Curtis Nelson, comes back and takes 6th. That was after beating Landon Sidden the week prior at the regional tournament, and then falls to 6th. Landon ends up winning it, right? He's one that he's looking good. Greg, would you agree with that he took care of business against Wenner, a 2-time state medalist who was ranked 4th in the state? I was very impressed with what he did to Wenner.
Yeah, he's looked phenomenal, and really a guy that could be wrestling 121 right now, right? He decides to go up with Sidden at that weight, and Sidden ends up going out. So Sloboda, a guy who he's wrestling very comfortable. He's wrestling loose, and you could tell, he's getting after his attacks. He's hard to take down because he's so flexible. And yeah, I mean, I like the way he's wrestling, and I think he's going to be, tough on that bottom half. I mean, the bottom half has so much talent, right? But the way he took care of business against Dalton Wenner, and even the other guys in that bracket too. Yeah. I like the way he's wrestling right now.
Mitch, the Northeast region saw a rematch, and the week prior it was an ultimate tiebreaker win for Keanu Dillard. This time it was a little bit the gap widened a little bit. What did you take away from that finals match with Dillard and Ballard?
I I took away that Keanu Dillard is completely in control of what's happening there. And I say that as somebody who thinks very highly of Gabe Ballard. I've seen him come through the top hat as a freshman a couple years ago in Williamsport, and was just blown away by, the maturity and what he was able to do. But there was a point where I think Ballard got a reversal late in the second period that made it 4-2. And you're like, okay, this is a match now. And Dillard gets out. It's 5-2. Ballard chooses bottom in the third period, and Dillard just rides him out, and with just a suffocating ride in the third period. And it's like, okay, this dude knows exactly what's going on. He's in complete control of what's going on, and that's against the number 2 kid in the state.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it, and I think that's what you should take away from a guy who's a 2-time state champ. As a junior, that he is in total control of it. So that's what I took away from it. Again, I still really like Gabe Ballard. I think he probably is still the second best kid in this weight, and we'll find that out in the quarterfinals probably against Sloboda.
That quarterfinal, man, that to me is just, it's crazy that's going to be a quarterfinal. Two guys that were in the same bracket last year, but they did not face each other. Ballard, if you remember, had that crazy semifinal match with Landon Sidden, lost 9-8. It was a really, really good match. Ballard comes back, medals, and him and Santino Sloboda did not hit head-to-head, but boy, they're going to hit in the quarterfinals. I would bet the house that they are going to be in the quarterfinals, and that's going to be an absolute war. I can't wait for it. I think it's a toss-up. I think it's 100% a toss-up, and I think the winner there makes it to the finals, to be honest with you. When you look at the bottom half, other than that, you have Mason Whitney from Abington Heights, who last year was a state medalist, finished 7th, and you have Aiden Herndon, who was a state finalist at 107 pounds. So he's up 20 pounds in a couple weight classes. He's taken some losses this year. He lost to a couple guys there this year that he lost to Aiden Coons. He got pinned by him, and Coons ended up finishing not in the top 2 at the region, in the West region. That West region was pretty insane because you had Dom Canali, who I thought had a really good tournament, Greg. Mason Whitney lost to Herndon. So if you're looking at quarterfinal matchups, Herndon and Whitney wrestled at the Midwinter Mayhem. Herndon ended up winning that one. So that bottom half is pretty stacked. I think the top half, Keanu Dillard has a pretty favorable road. No offense to Quinn McBride, because I think Quinn McBride's tough, but I think it's all Keanu Dillard. And probably going to see Dalton Wenner right away in the quarterfinals. Joe, what can you tell us about the Southeast and Quinn McBride? I mean, he took some losses early in the year, and he seems to be settled in now at 127.
Yeah, when he made the move to 127, not that things didn't click before that, they kind of clicked, and he's been really tough to beat at 127. After getting the weight allowance. It should be known Chase Siegel was up 5-0 and cruising the semifinals over Bryce Boyer, then was victim to a defensive pin, and it was flat. I saw the replay. The official gave it every opportunity for him to improve his position from off his back. He tried to, roll through, and Boyer just posted, caught him. So I think that's worth noting. And Sean Murray, shout out to Sean Murray in Upper Perk. For a sophomore, he is, he's having a great sophomore season. I'm not anointing him a state medalist just yet, but he caught Chase Siegel in that 3rd and 4th place match and beat Chase Siegel. So Chase was coming off a South, District South championship, and senior that was starting to put things together once he got down to 127. So. And Quinn McBride was very workmanlike in his major decision over Bryce Boyer in the regional final, 9-1. Kind of took his foot off the gas in third period. It was 9-1 going into the third. That's how it finished. Quinn McBride's going to have to wrestle the full 6 at Hershey every time out if he's going to repeat as a medalist. I think District 1 is good for 1 medal here. Just
And
it's
it could
not
be Murray, it could be McBride. I think it
right.
could be.
Could be Siegel.
Yeah.
Like it is. It's a crapshoot. There's just so much talent in this bracket that from other regions, it's going to be really tough. I think in the wrestlebacks, you're going to see a lot of District 1 on District 1 crime, because they're going to match up against each other and cannibalize one another. So
I honestly think Aiden Coons, who is 5th out of the West region, lost to Declan Barr in the District 6 tournament. He had been having a hell of a year coming into the year. Now, let's go back to the top hat. Mitch, you brought this up. He beat Noah Fenner, who he has in the first round of states, 9-1 at the top hat. So if you're looking at first round matchups, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like he's got this one. He beat Tanner Gano. He beat Brad Wagner. He's beaten, as I mentioned, Brady Slicker. He beat Brady Slicker. He beat Aiden Herndon. He pinned him in the first period. He's lost to Winner a couple times. He's lost to Logan Stewart, but I mean, he's beaten Barr a couple times. Just lost him in the most recent one. This one, to me, I could see Aiden Coons making the semifinals, but I think it's Dillard on the top half coming out against Coons. I'm going to go Sloboda making the finals on the bottom half. So there, I went ahead and took the fall for you guys. I started off with it. Greg, we're going to go to you next. What do you see here happening at 127?
Yeah, so definitely I like Dillard to make it to the semifinal. I'm going to surprise you guys, and I think it's just going to depend. This is his first time in Hershey.
Dom Canale, I knew it.
Dom
The
Canale.
Trinity Hiller, baby.
You know what? He had a hell of a tournament this past weekend.
He did.
He
did.
He beats Declan Barr not once, but twice, and does it in decisive fashion. He also beats Aiden Coons in the consolation semifinal as well. So his third place finish was well-deserved, and he's just in the right spot of the bracket. And I could see Aiden Coons beating McBride in the round of 16, and Canale and Coons battling it out in the quarters. That's why, because his first time in Hershey, will the nerves get to him? We'll see. I think if he's in the right mindset like he was this past weekend, I think he gets to the semifinal, where I would see Dillard making it to the final. Bottom half, got to go with Sloboda. He's wrestling fantastic. And I think he's going to beat Aiden Herndon in the semifinal. And in that final, I know everybody's going Dillard on this show, so I'm going to go Santino Sloboda, state title.
All right. Wow. Mitch, tough act to follow up there.
Can we go to no? That's right.
I didn't know if you froze or you were just stunned. No, it seems like you're stunned.
Just my shocked face. Yeah, that's all it was. Yeah, listen, I like Keanu Dillard coming out of the top half. I think we're all going to say that. To me, it depends on which Aiden Coons from Central Mountain shows up. Is it the guy who beat Tanner Cano, Noah Fenner, and Bradley Wagner in the same day at the top hat, or is it the guy who's 9-5 in his last 14 matches? So if it's the good one that shows up, I think he's capable of getting to the semis against Dillard. On the bottom half, it's whoever wins Ballard and Sloboda. I still like Gabe Ballard. I know how battle tested both of these guys are, but with Ballard being close-ish with Dillard, I like what he's capable in these big matches. So I'll pick him coming out of the bottom half against Mason Whitney, I think, in the semifinals. I really like what Mason Whitney's done this year, and that should make District 2 pretty happy as well.
Well, who do you have winning it?
Dillard. Okay. Yeah, I'm not ready to go out on that branch that Greg went out on.
Oh, all right. Joseph.
I have I got Dillard in the semis in the top half with Canale as well. Greg's compelling argument, put me there. I wasn't sure where I was going at that moment. In the bottom half, I got Sloboda and Herndon in the other semi. Sloboda and Dillard in the final. I'm going for the Dillard double. Back-to-back weight classes.
You did pick Keanu, I forgot.
Yes. No, Reef.
You picked Reef. I'm sorry, you picked Reef.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going for the Dillard double this postseason in the state championships.
Shout out. Forget Colin Rath. Tear the statue down. Build a Dillard double. statue outside of Becca. Yeah, people forget that Mason Whitney and Aiden Herndon match was a 4-3 match. It was a close match. So sleeper here, man. Connor Killian, depends on what Connor Killian shows up, but he had a really good Cumber Valley kickoff and has kind of been quiet since then. But he's somebody that to keep an eye on as kind of a dark horse here. Let's go up to 133, Greg.
Yeah, the top seed is the West champ, Nico Finella of Indiana. Number 2 is the Northeast champ, Jack Campbell of Nazareth. Number 3, the South Central champ, Jackson Rush of West Perry. And number 4, the Southeast champ, Anthony Mutarelli of Council Rock South. And boy, the top half seems rather loaded with top-end talent.
I mean, the top is absolutely disgusting. Okay, let's take a look here. Trey Wagner, a returning state champion, is in the top half. Anthony Mutarelli, who has been number 1 in the state basically ever since he got down to 133, and he's been consistently in the lineup. And then Nico Finella, who recently just flipped from Brown to Pitt, a 2-time state medalist, ranked 2nd in the state. I mean, my God, the top half. When I saw this, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me, right? Because there's just so much talent on that top half that, if you're looking at it, because of Campbell beating Trey Wagner, right? Now Campbell's on the bottom with guys like Luke Wilshell and Jackson Rush. We're going to see most likely a Wilshell-Jackson Rush quarterfinal, which I think the winner there has a very good chance to make the finals. Wilshell made the finals as a freshman. He's a senior now. Lost to Nate Desmond there, but is a 3-time state medalist. So for me, the top half is just a meat grinder, and I can't wait because Nico Finella, Greg, he was able to pull it out in 2 weeks in a row. What was different this time around for those of you who didn't see it?
Yeah, not much from week to week, to be honest with you. Finella has his number, 2 times in a row and able to get the victory, and he's looked sensational, right? I mean, if it's not Luke Willishow on the line, he's pinning you or teching you. Yeah. He's just been fantastic all season long and really pouring it on here in the postseason. But, Willishow got the first points, with the reversal in the second period, but it was Finella who, got a reversal, got a couple of near fall points as well, just to be able to end up coming up 6-4 in this one. So it's a shame that he doesn't get the opportunity to, potentially get to, well, we'll see. He
does have a chance to make the finals. Let's be real.
He does. He's just got to have a lot tougher opponent, I guess you could say, than Willishow. A little tougher path than Willishow.
Yeah, for sure he's got a tougher path. And Joe, Anthony Mutarelli, I mean, we know how good he is, right? He was ineligible last year, probably would have won a state title last year. I'm just going to throw that out there. He very well could have won a state title last year. Was a national prep champion before at Malvern. This year has looked really good when he's in the lineup. And he kind of big brothered Colby Martinelli, who himself is coming back, was a state medalist a couple years ago. Is Mutarelli the favorite here, you think, Joe? Or
so real quick, Greg, I want to bounce back to the other question. You got to give us the story on Nicholas Berena from State College. He's a senior, he's 13 and 17. How did he make it to the state tournament? Well, this right away jumped off the page to me.
He beat Patrick Tarantella from Central Mountain, who he had lost to the week prior, and then there was a slam in the 5th and 6th place match, Greg, right? What happened there?
That is correct. Yeah, it was Stediford brought him down on his head. Stediford was winning 7-1. He was up 6-0 after one, and he got up, and he wanted to go. But they decided not to allow him to wrestle. I don't know if that was a trainer decision or coach's decision, but Berena wanted to wrestle. But he didn't, and he wins by DQ.
Okay. Just seemed like a unique story, and you always neat to see someone come this far with a losing record as a senior. There'd probably be a story behind it. But Jeff, back to your original question, Mutarelli, yeah, and you kind of said what I was gonna say. Like, if not for being ineligible last year, Mutarelli would have been a state champ for the Council Rock, Golden Hawks. No fault of his own, probably because he didn't wrestle postseason last year. The seeding, the way it happened, he ends up as the 4th seed. The Campbell win, bumping Wagner up there. And then, of course, Finella, it's really a crowded top half. I think Mutarelli is the best wrestler in the top half. And then
What
you
about Dan
mentioned
Dennis? What do you think about Dan Dennis?
Dan Dennis. Again, he's kind of lurked all season. He's been on the radar. He wrestled really well against Brecken Strickland in that third and fourth place match last week. Strickland owns a win over, a major decision win over Colby Martinelli earlier in the year, and Colby Martinelli absolutely put it on him in the semis at regionals on Saturday. I think something to the tune like 17-7 or 15-5, like that. And totally reversed an earlier result where he was, Strickland really put it on him. And then Dan Dennis beat Strickland. And Strickland's like a fun kid to watch. Anyone out there has the opportunity to tune in and watch him go. Like, he throws it all at you, and he goes hard the full 6 minutes. He's like the Energizer Bunny out there. So he's a really, really cool kid to watch wrestle. And I've really have, enjoyed watching him throughout his career. He lets it fly every time he's out there. Dan Dennis, though, it's going to be interesting to see what to expect. He's a freshman, his first time out there in under the Hershey lights. But like, if the regional tournament was anything as a precursor to that, like, I don't think that moment will be too big for him, because he wrestled really well in big moments all weekend. Colby Martinelli's the question mark.
I mean, he was third in the state 2 years ago.
Right, they're in the state, and then
Ran
ran some issues medically last year, kept him out of the postseason, and now he's back, and he looks good at 133 pounds, and I don't.
But he's got a tough first round matchup there with Collier Hartman, who I think's been wrestling well outside of wrestling Nico Finella and Luke Willishow. Outside of those two, he's been on, right. So that to me is one of the better first round matchups. Besides looking ahead to the quarterfinals for some of those, but I think that's probably one of the best first round matchups at 133 pounds. Mitch, the Northeast region, what was Jack Campbell able to do to get that win over Trey Wagner? What did he say?
I think it was, he talked about this, and a lot of his teammates talked about this as well. The way they finished the matches was really impressive, and how they were able to go about doing that. And they all pointed to the early morning runs that they do, that they hate getting up for. They talk about the 2-a-day practices, and it just builds your lungs up for matches like that are going to be grinded out 6+ minute matches. And if you look at his results with Trey Wagner throughout the year, that was their fourth matchup. First one was 6-3 Wagner, then 4-2 Wagner, then 2-1 Wagner in tie breaks. So you could see it coming, where Jack Campbell was building a little bit of momentum, building a little bit of confidence, and he was just finally able to get that third period takedown in a 2-2 match to get the win there. It's what he believes he should be doing. He believes he should be winning that match, and I love the way the Nazareth team is probably coming into the year was not the best team in District 11, but they won the District 11 team title. They won the Northeast Region team title. And the way this team is finishing the year, they are peaking at the right time. And when you have a coach in the manner that they do, he understands how to prep guys for the end of the match, the end of the season, and get them ready to go. And I think it was just Jack's time, like he put the work in, and he just made it happen. And I think, again, it builds confidence. He believes he can win. Personally, this is my favorite bracket out of all the AA brackets, out of all the AAA brackets, out of all the girls brackets. This is my favorite bracket in the entire state tournament, because the first round matchups are so intriguing. The quarterfinal matchups are so intriguing. It's just going to get better and better as we go on. Nobody's going to mention Isaiah Jackson. That kid's really good, in a first round match there, and he's going to run into Nick Barena, who's a great story, and then maybe Jack Campbell. I love that Collier Hartman, Colby Martinelli first round match. I think that's the best first round match in the bracket. But I mean, even as much as Trey Wagner against Caden Yanarella in the first round, intriguing. I expect Trey Wagner to win, but I think it's an intriguing matchup. This whole bracket's just fantastic.
Well, actually, Mitch, I'm glad you said that, because now I'm going to put you on the spot. Since this is your favorite bracket, who's going to be your favorite semifinalists and winners here?
Yeah, so I think the winner of Wagner and Mutarelli comes out of the top half of the bracket there. I love what Nico Finella has done over the last 2 to 3 years, and this is their first year, I think, wrestling up in AAA.
He was AAA his freshman year.
AAA's freshman year. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see him on this stage, but I think Mutarelli and Wagner, the winner there, comes out of the top half of the bracket. The bottom half, I like Luke Willichell coming out of the middle of the bracket there. Again, I like the way Jack Campbell finished the match last week. I like how he's peaking at the end of the year, but I think this is the year Luke Willichell gets himself back into the state final. He was there as a freshman. I think this is the year he gets it done. You know, when I saw him at the King of the Mountain, he is free and easy, man. He's content with everything that he has done throughout his career, what his college choice is. I think he's wrestling with house money at this point, and being back down here in Hershey, I think he's going to let it fly. I like Luke Willichell to beat Anthony Mutarelli in the state final.
Okay. All right. Ballsy pick. I like it. I mean, it's not ballsy. It's a good pick, but I like it. A guy who's lost twice in the last 2 weeks. You have him winning in the big when it matters most. Greg, what's your follow up there?
Boy, I wish I had the same confidence as Mitch does. I do. I really would love to see Nico Finella in that final, but yeah, I do think he gets to the semi. Anthony Mutarelli to me is just a step above the rest right now. I like Mutarelli to make it to not only the final but to win it. Luke Willichell, I do like to make it to the final, and in him beating Jack Campbell in the semis. So I'd love to see a Finella Willichell, rematch in the final to determine the state title. But at the end of the day, I think Anthony Mutarelli's the champ.
I mean, you had mentioned about Mutarelli kind of being a step above a little bit, and I personally don't think that's. I think Mutarelli and Finella are, like, no disrespect to Trey Wagner, who's a returning state champion, but I think it's all Mutarelli and Finella, because if you look at what Anthony Mutarelli did to Jack Campbell, now this was earlier in the season, he's tech-falled Jack Campbell, who just beat Trey Wagner in the regional finals, a returning state champion. He's teched him twice. 15-0 in 3 minutes and 54 seconds was the first time. I mean, he's on a different level, right? And then he teched him in 3 minutes and 32 seconds. So, I mean, I think Mutarelli is definitely. I wouldn't say he is battle tested, because outside of those, he wrestled Camden Baum, who he lost to when he was at 39. But since he's been down at 33, he hasn't really faced a tough opponent. I would have loved to see him at the Escape the Rock, but he wasn't there. So that probably I would have felt a little bit better picking him had I seen him at Escape the Rock, because outside of those first couple matches with Jack Campbell and with Camden Baum, he hasn't really wrestled anybody at his caliber, right? He hasn't been pushed. He hasn't been tested. Actually, I don't even know if he's wrestled a full 6 minutes since December. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. But I still think that he ends up getting it done. But Nico Finella, you cannot say enough. I mean, I would not be surprised to see Nico Finella win this. In fact, in his mind, I bet he thinks I'm the favorite here. Luke Willichell, yeah, he's free and loose, but that sometimes hurts him a little bit, right? That sometimes hurts a little bit when he goes out there and he needs to be a little bit more conservative and be a little bit more stingy. And I think that's kind of why he lost to Finella in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna go Nico Finella, Anthony Mutarelli beating Wagner, Mutarelli beating Finella, and I have Willichell beating Rush, and I have Jack Campbell beating Collier Hartman, and Willichell making it to the finals with Mutarelli winning it. So who did I pick? Joe, is that you? Joe, you're next?
Yep. Save me for the end.
Best for last.
I would, I wouldn't be the one to say that. But anyway, again, what weight class isn't loaded with talent? And this is just another one. We're only at 139 pounds, but I'm going to go kind of with the company line here. And if I were to pick against Mutarelli, I think Councilor Rock Faithful would revoke my temporary living status there when I make it out there throughout the season. I'm going Mutarelli to win, beating Finella in the semifinals. That Trey Wagner Mutarelli match, one of the top quarterfinal matches you're going to want to see in all the brackets. Then the bottom half, I feel like we're all on the same page with this one. I think it's going to be Willichel and Campbell in that semifinal, and I like Willichel to make the final, but ultimately take second to Mutarelli.
Okay, fair.
139 pounds Northeast champ Tahir Parkins of Nazareth at the top. Southeast champ Patrick Kelly of Central Bucks West, number 2. South Central champ Miles Grossman of Gettysburg, number 3. And the West champ Kai Vioma of Connellsville, number 4.
Greg, how good's Kai Vioma been in these last 2 weeks?
He's been phenomenal, and it makes me sick that he's on the same half as Parkins, because I think these are the best.
Sick.
I think those two are the best 2 guys in this weight class, in my opinion, and they're going to meet in the semifinal. But Vioma he's definitely taken his wrestling to another level here in the postseason.
Well, I mean, Patrick Kelly's a returning state medalist. He finished 4th last year, had a hell of a win over Brock Weiss, and I would agree that Vioma has proven that he's in that conversation. I wouldn't say he's a clear number 2, but I get the sentiment. I think, I mean, Tahir Parkins is as close as a lock as you can for me. I can't see anybody touching him. I mean, he's on a different level than these guys. I like Kai Vioma. I think he's been wrestling really well. I like Patrick Kelly, but I don't see anybody coming close to Tahir Parkins. Mitch, am I crazy for saying that, or am I too high on him?
No, I think if we were doing a confidence pool, Tahir Parkins would be near the top of your confidence picks. I mean, like he had a December where he got a couple challenges, and he answered the bell on those challenges. But for the last 2 months, he's just been on cruise control, and he has a distinct way he goes about his matches. Let's score a lot of points in a little bit of time and just get off the mat. He knows what he's capable of, and he knows there are very few people probably in the country at this point that are going to take him a full 6 minutes. And he's just riding the wave, man. Like he's such a fun kid to be around. He's such a fun kid to talk to week after week. But I'm with you. I think he's probably, as long as he wrestles like Tig Parkins wrestles, I think he's as close to a lock as there is in the tournament.
Joe, I mean, the Southeast had some very good talent here, with Patrick Kelly obviously being at the top here, but Blake Boyer is committed to Kent State, 2-time state qualifier. I've been very impressed with Blake throughout his career, freestyle and folk style. He's got a tough first-round matchup with CJ Faree from Central Dauphin, who last year was a state medalist. He finished 8th in the state last year, but took a loss at the regional tournament to Logan Maurer from Cumberland Valley. And, I'm curious to see this first round matchup, because I think, depending on who shows up there, Kai Vioma, obviously I think is a little bit more favored, but, I could see them sneaking into the semifinals potentially. What do you make of the Southeast region, Joe? And what did you like about Pat Kelly kind of proving that it wasn't a fluke last year? Because I think a lot of people kind of were still on like, he had a really good weekend, but is he really that good?
He is that good, and Boyer is as close. It's a razor thin margin. It was a 1-0 win in the regional final, on the back of an escape. And then I third period, Boyer went down, and Pat Kelly was like a wet blanket, like just all over him. Didn't allow him out. So if I'm a betting man, I think District 1 gets 2 medals with both of those guys making their way onto the podium, and Pat Kelly making me a 2-time medalist, Blake Boyer getting on the podium for the first time. But you can't count out a guy like Pat Woloshin from Rock South, who's enjoyed like a great junior year, has some big wins over name escapes me. 2 wins at Escape the Rock over Malvern guy from Coatesville. Drawing a blank. And he's just won big matches his entire career, and so he's gonna knock on the door. Yeah, Jason Torres. So I don't know why I couldn't.
Coatesville.
Yes, I knew that. I could remember that, just not his name. But I think Pat Kelly makes the final from the bottom half of this
Mm.
bracket. Would he, if Kai Vilema was on his half, would that happen? I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd bet a lot of money for that to happen. But just the way this bracket fell, I think it favors Pat Kelly. I think CB West gets a state finalist out of this.
You had mentioned Wilshan. I mean, Miles Grossman from Gettysburg is the quiet one here as a sophomore. I really like him. He was a state qualifier last year. Gettysburg wrestles a pretty tough schedule. He actually has a win over Wilshan, beat him 10-5 this year, and that was at the team tournament. If he's healthy and ready to go, which I think he probably is, I think he's going to be a very tough out. And I would not be surprised to see him end up into the semifinals on that bottom top half. Dom Ferrero is one that I'm keeping an eye on. I would also not be surprised to see him. Now, he's a guy who entered the regional tournament undefeated, just lost to Kai Viama twice. I could see him making the semifinals. I could see him pulling an upset against Pat Kelly. I would not want to wrestle Dom Ferrero early in the bracket. Mitch, what do you think? What do you like here? Who do you like?
I think Tahir Parkins coming out of the top half of the bracket is.
Who's he going to get in semis?
Boy, I don't think we need to ask that part of it. Things.
No, we do need to ask
I
that
like
part.
I like Kai Vielma. I saw him earlier this year. Where did I see him? At the top hat. I like CJ Free. I've seen him a couple times. I know Patrick Woloshin's got a win over Miles Grossman. I saw Miles Grossman had the great run down at Trojan Wars down there and won that tournament. I like Kai Vielma coming out of that top half to see Tahir Parkins in the semifinals. I really do like the draw for Miles Grossman. I think that's a chance for him to get to the semis. I like Patrick Kelly because, again, I think he's a tough matchup. He's a matchup problem. But I'll probably take Dominic Ferraro coming out of the bottom half and to see Tahir Parkins in the finals and Parkins winning.
You've got Ferraro making the finals.
I do, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I'm not a ton of confidence in it, but
it's fine. We don't need to have confidence.
I like his season, what he's put together.
What about the South Fayette Lions?
You know what,
Mazenko,
Jeff?
Man, he had a hell of a tournament. He had a hell of a West Region tournament to come out to finish third there. That was a very impressive performance by him, and I actually think he has a pretty decent draw there with Gavin Kelton. And not to say he's favored, but I think I'd obviously rather have him than some of these other guys.
Well, and you know what? I want to mention too the guys that aren't here from the West. Right? You have Elijah Brocious of Cranberry, did not qualify for the state tournament. You got Jordan Rutan, who beat Brocious the previous week. Mazenko beats him in the opening round 9-2. He's not here. You got Dayton Soto, who's a Connecticut State champ, who came in with a lot of pedigree. Mazenko beats him as well to knock him out. And who else beat him? TJ Allison of Trinity as well. I'm sure your dad's super happy right now. I'm talking up Trinity, but I think the Trinity guys, Jeff, they have a great draw, to be honest. When you look at this bracket in the bottom half, because you got Allison feeding. I mean, if Grossman makes it to the semis or the final, he's earned it because he's going to probably have to wrestle TJ Allison in the round of 16, who Allison is just so hard to score on. He's a very defensive wrestler. Then you're going to have Talon Mazenko as well, likely, and then potentially Dom Ferraro as well. So, the West, has a lot of depth. I mean, even Gavin Ciampoli, he had a great tournament as well last week, where he loses that match to Soto, his opening match in overtime, but then he comes back and he beats Brocious, he beats Rutan, he beats TJ Allison, and then drops the loss to Mazenko. So, I think the West is well represented here at 139, and I like Parkins and Vioma to battle it out in the semis with Parkins winning and being in being the champ. But on the bottom half, I really struggle with who's going to get to the semi. I'm actually going with Mitch here, Ferraro in the finals. The question is who he's going to face in the semi, and I'm going to go with a West wrestler. I just don't know if it's Mazenko or Allison. I'm going to go Allison, but I mean, that's a true toss-up match, and I think the West is going to wrestle well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the depth from the West. It's pretty sick how many guys are sitting at home that should be at the state tournament. That's for another day. But I would agree with you. Tahir Parkins is clearly the favorite. I have him going to the finals and making it and winning it. But especially with Kai Vielma being away from that bottom half, it really just opens it up like wide, because Miles Grossman is good, but there's not, like you said, he split matches with Wolshan. It's hard to say with confidence he's going to make it. So I tend to pick the guy who has been there, done that, and that's Pat Kelly. So I'm going to go Pat Kelly to make the finals, beating Ferraro in the quarters and then beating Grossman in the semifinals. But to your point, Greg, I would not be shocked at all to see TJ Allison make it to the quarterfinals, TJ Allison beating like a Mazenko to make the semifinals, Dom Ferraro beating both Kellys, beating Chris Kelly and then beating Pat Kelly to make it to the semifinals. That's what I love about this bracket is, outside of being mad that Vielma's on the same side as Parkins, the bottom half is going to be really fun, right? So I'm excited for that.
145 pounds, Dalton Perry of Central Mountain is your top seed. Aaron Cement of Council Rock North is your second seed from the Southeast. The South Central champ, McCaden Speece of Wilson, is the third, and Michael Turry, the Northeast champ from West Scranton, is number 4.
Well, I'm going to start with you, Mitch. The Northeast was pretty stacked, but so was the West region. But I really like Michael Turry, but he's on the same side as Dalton Perry, right? You'd love to see them separated, but I feel pretty good about where he's at in the bracket.
It helps if I unmute myself. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a really good quadrant for him. I think there are not just winnable matches, but matches where he's the favorite kind of going into that.
Yeah.
Jake Mitchell's had a real nice year at Cumberland Valley, but that's a match that Michael Turry should win. And when you get to the semifinals, I think anything can happen there. We've seen it with Dalton Perry. For as good as he's been for the last 4 years, he will sometime bring guys into matches that maybe shouldn't
be there, right?
In those matches, and not that Michael Turry shouldn't be in a match with Dalton Perry. I think that's a great matchup there. But that if you keep it to a takedown match, anything can kind of happen there, So while I do think Dalton Perry's kind of the favorite to come out of that top half, I think Michael Turry's going to give him everything he wants. Turry's been 7th place in the state each of the last 2 years. He's ready to break through. He understands what he needs to do within the state tournament. And I think he showed that last week at the Northeast Regional by going down there, beating Marco Frenzy in the final. So I think he's in a really good spot. I love the potential quarterfinal matchup, Aaron Cement, Marco Frenzy on the bottom half. I think they wrestled earlier this year, maybe in an overtime or a 1-point match or something along those lines. Those two saw each other earlier this year. Aaron Cement's a guy who's been third each of the last 3 years. His losses have come to Dean Hauser, Michael Turry, and Ty Kapusta in the state tournament at different points within the tournament. I think he's a guy who's ready to break through and finally get himself into the finals. I like McCaden Speece from Wilson West Lawn. Ramil Islamov is a guy who gave Dalton Perry everything he wanted last week in the regional final. It's a really interesting bracket. It really is. There's a lot of things that could go different ways. I think if we're going to see an upset, maybe it comes from this bracket, one that makes everybody go ooh and ah. I think it could come out of this bracket.
So I would say you said 33 was your favorite bracket, Mitch. 45 is by far my favorite bracket, because there's just so much. There's so many different storylines here. Aaron Cement being a 3-time state third, that is just tough, right? I think. Well, I mean, I guess I'd rather be state third 3 times than state runner-up 3 times, but, come on, give me a chance to get to the finals. I think he's been wrestling outside of his mind. Now, he and Michael Turry wrestled at True Power. There was a little bit of a weight difference, but Michael Turry beat him at True Power. and it was a lot of heavy hands. Like I don't think there's any love lost between these two. So selfishly, I kind of want to see that one again. But like you look at the top, and Dalton Perry, let's not forget one of those guys that he kept in his match was Case Chop, who was 5th out of the West, and he's down in the bottom half. Dalton Perry has a loss to Case Chop in the last 2 years, right? So Dalton Perry is not a shoo-in, right? And I think Michael Turry, I agree that I'd rather be on the top half. Like I think Michael Turry and Dalton Perry are the clear 2 guys to get to the semifinals. I don't think there's anyone that's going to come remotely close to touching either one of those 2. That's just the reality of the situation. That bottom half, though, with Spieth and Islamov in that quarterfinal, that's going to be a war. I think Frenzy, if he can beat Higgins, him and Cement, right? That should be a close match, but I favor Cement. And boy, Cement versus Spieth or Islamov. Greg, I love the way Islamov wrestles, and just to see what he did to Case Chop makes me think that he is a real title contender.
He really is. And if you take away the first minute of the match against Dalton Perry, he wins that one. He really came back and made it close and, wrestled him tough. Perry got a takedown in about 15 seconds, and then he got another takedown within the first minute. So he was up 6-1 pretty quick, and, Perry wins 7-6. So Islamov did get a takedown at the end of that first period, and then you traded escapes from there. But I tell you what, he wrestled Perry very, very tough. And, he's been wrestling lights out all season long, right? That was his first loss this season. So to me, I think he's, right in that mix as far as title contention.
Joe?
I want to start off by saying I want to give a shout out to the Southeast 4th place winner, Danny Metzler. Just started wrestling as a sophomore. And
he just picked up wrestling as a sophomore?
Yes.
Wow.
So I know, Jeff, you and I talked when doing rankings and how he was having a good end to this season. I didn't think he'd make it to states, and then I come to find out after the fact that he just picked it up as a sophomore.
That's super impressive.
Right, like just a great story. Like again, he's in a tough spot in this weight class. But like the good of the story is he where he's at right now. You guys have said it all. Like there's so many the storylines in this weight class are plenty, and you could take Perry, Turi, Islamov, Spieth, and Semet and Frenzy and pick names, and you could have a bunch of different finalists. With that being said, I don't think if I'm going on what I think with the eye test, Dalton Perry is Dalton Perry. I think until Michael Turi gets over that hump this weekend, it's still gonna be Dalton Perry in the top half, and I'm gonna go with the District 1 guy, Aaron Cement. He's definitely on a mission to event and to improve upon his 3-time third place finish. So call me a homer if you will, but I think Aaron Cement gets over the hump, gets to the final. But I think Dalton Perry is going to climb the mountain one more time. He's going to bookend his high school career with a state championship as a freshman and another as a senior.
Out of those top 6 guys, Perry, Turi, Cement, Islamov, Spieth, and Frenzy, those 6 guys, they combined have 11 state medals to their name, including a state championship in Dalton Perry, and Cement having 3 third-place finishes, Dalton Perry having a second and a third. So, I mean, we're talking about a tale of 2 cities here. You have some really, really top-end guys, and then you have a guy like Danny Metzler who just picked up wrestling as a sophomore, right? I mean, that to me just shows you the difference in this weight class, because I didn't expect Kianvi to Hamlin from Dyref to make it to the States, but he did. It's just a fun weight class because you have such top-end talent there. So, Joe, thank you for giving your predictions. Greg, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think Perry Turi collision course here in the semifinals, and like Perry to win. I'll probably be the outlier here, but I like Islamov to be in the semis, and I like him to beat Aaron Cement in the final and have a rematch with Perry, with Islamov winning the title.
Mitch?
Bold move, Cotton.
That is a bold move.
I like
I
it. I
can't
like
say
it.
I don't
I'm
like
not,
it though. Yeah,
I'm
like
not saying I don't like it. I like it.
no, it makes 100% sense to go to make that pick. Again, Perry Turi in the semis. I do like Dalton Perry. Um, I want to see him focused, like just kind of cruise through some early matches to see that he's focused and really getting after it. I'm with Greg. I like Islamov coming out of that quadrant to get to the semis. I'm still going to go Aaron Cement coming out of that bottom half, and Dalton Perry winning his second title.
Yeah, I mean, it is bold, right? But if you look at the way that Cement's been wrestling as of late, right? He's just been tearing guys up, right? I mean, Joe, like there's some decent guys in District 1, and he kind of just rolled right through it, right? I don't think it's that bold. I like Dalton Perry on the top half, but I think Michael Turi's going to give him literally everything he could. I mean, Turi's just been very impressive to me, and especially when he came down to 45, I'm thinking he's a guy who has a win over Cement, right? Cement was 8th at the Super 32 this year. That was a damn good weight class that he was in too. Parkins and Perry were both in that weight class. So, for me, Dalton Perry takes second at the Super 32. Cement takes 8th. So I mean, it's a long time ago, and it's. I'm not saying that you should look at that and make a determination, but I think Cement is going to find a way to get to the finals. I don't think he's going to settle for being third again. So I do have him making it to the finals. But on that top half, Dalton Perry's going to have to go through a very tough Michael Turi. And I have Islamov beating Spieth to be in the semifinals. I have Dalton Perry winning it. So I think, did we all pick? No, we all didn't. Who didn't pick Dalton?
I did not pick Dalton.
Not.
I'm going with Islamov in the rematch.
Okay. All right. Let's keep it going.
152 pounds, the top seed from the West, Maddox Shaw of Thomas Jefferson. Number 2 is Southeast champ Gavin Carroll of Quakertown. 3rd seed, Northeast, Cade Campbell of Nazareth. And the 4th seed from the South Central, Nathaniel I'm going to screw this one up. Raplogle, from Central York.
So Greg, the biggest story here was Petrovic not winning it is that he got 3rd, losing the Whitbread. What that was a tied match before the fall, right?
Yeah, so you know what? It was all Petrovic, to be honest. He was up 6-1 after 1, and then an escape from Whitbread in the second, and then Whitbread got a takedown, and then ends up, Petrovic quick escape, but it went from a takedown to a cradle, turned him over to his back, and pins him. So Petrovic really, I mean, for the first, 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes of this, he was in the lead, in control. It was his match. But yeah, Whitbread caught him in the cradle and got the fall.
Yeah, I mean, we had saw him and Shaw wrestle to a 1-0 match at the Whitfield tournament, and then to see that happen, I don't think it does any favors to the Southeast region, Joe, because you look at Gavin Carroll, and he had a hell of a match in the finals there, and I think you and I talked on the phone when my car was broken down somewhere in Bethlehem, but we were talking about the semifinals, and I said, looking how deep that weight class was, Carroll ended up winning it, but Luke Knox was I thought had a hot hand because Chris Dennis is also one of the best wrestlers in the state, right? So is Gavin Carroll, can he make a run here?
Like you said, this one didn't do him any favors. Petrovic is a really tough matchup for him in that quarterfinal round. So far as a run, like if I'm being honest, my gut tells me if he's to get back on the podium, it's going to be through the Russelbacks after losing there. Who had benefited the most in District 1 is Luke Knox. Luke Knox being that bottom quadrant of the top half of the bracket. I think he has the chops to make the semis. In fact, I'll go on record and say I think he makes a semi coming out of there because of the way he's been wrestling. He was letting it go for broke against Carroll, and Carroll took advantage of those situations, en route to beating him. I believe it was like 18-6 major decision. And, like he used Knox's wide open style against him. The thing about Carroll is he's very detail oriented. He's very tech savvy rather with how he goes about wrestling his matches, and he's always in control. And it was Luke Knox's kryptonite on that particular night, Saturday up at Souderton. But Chris Dennis, I think this is a weight class where the Southeast region could put three guys on the podium.
They should put three guys on the podium.
Yes,
I think it would be a disappointment if they don't get three guys on the podium.
Right. And then you got a couple, you got Zach Jaffe like lurking. He's a returning state qualifier. Johnny O'Brien, guy was just missed out on making states last year. And I'll say this was a weight class that was really deep in District 1. And again, I haven't said that since 107.
You're right. To be fair.
Hunter Delaney from Sun Valley sitting home, and he was a two-time state qualifier coming up to this point. And he was beating. I'm sorry, he was tied late with Jaffe in the Consi semis, and Jaffe got a late takedown to win the match. And then he had a rematch with O'Brien, which they wrestled in the quarterfinals on Friday night. And he closed the gap with O'Brien, but it wasn't meant to be. So this was a weight class where a state qualifier sitting home, similar to some of those other weights we talked about from the West, where there's a lot of talent. This is one where District 1 definitely had a good balance. But
yeah,
I said,
you got your District 1 plug. All right, you got we get it.
Hey, I got Jeff. We all know I got to take them where I can get them. Right? Like
we know you.
We've had this discussion so many times
for years. We've been talking about this. Listen, Hall of Fame member is coming up here. Mitch, Cade Campbell. I mean, he's a state qualifier last year. A little bit banged up. I mean, he was banged up at team states. Do you think he's going to likely get Whitbread should he get out of there, which I think he does. But, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty not a good draw for a guy that's a regional champion.
Yeah, it's a tough draw. I mean, are there any great draws at the state tournament?
No,
maybe
there are.
but
I would say there's some pretty decent draws.
Yeah, but I thought he did exactly what he was supposed to do at the Northeast Regional Tournament. I think he was the best kid there by far. Got a good fight from Owen Wool of Blue Mountain in the finals. But he just took care of business. It was 3 straight falls to get into the finals, and then 7-2 win in the finals. He took care of business. He did what he was supposed to do. How that plays out this week, I'm not sure. I think he built a little confidence. I talk about that a lot with kids because I think it's a big thing with kids. Sometimes you just got to win some matches to just feel comfortable in your own skin and what you're doing on the mat. And I think he got that a little bit last week. Now this is a different level of competition. I think it's a far better tournament than what he faced last week. But if he can get through that, I don't think anybody would be shocked to see Cade Campbell in the semifinals. I think he'll probably see Evan Petrovich there. And I don't want to take Joe's thunder away from him from his District 1 guys, but I love Luke Knox. Like I love to watch that kid wrestle.
Yeah, he's
the way
fun.
He goes after it. He's probably, like he said, he probably got caught in that a little bit last week. Somebody who was able to kind of counter that the way he likes to go at it. But saw him at the Trojan Wars where he pinned a nationally ranked kid. I think Tyler Hood from Virginia in the finals, and he was winning by like 8 or 10 points when that happened. He was really taking it to him. Like that kid is just fun to watch, and I like him maybe to get to the semifinals, come out of that quadrant there in the top half as well.
I could definitely see him making the semifinals there. In fact, I have him making the semifinals there. But you look at this weight because Replogle from Central York is only a freshman, but he's a regional champion. Now, he lost to Darius McMillan at the Ultimate Warrior Tournament, a very good match, a close match. Darius McMillan, if he should win his first one, which I think he does, you'll have a rematch there. So he could upset the apple cart because, a fourth out of the West beating a regional champion would be pretty big, and I think that sets it up nicely for a guy like Luke Knox. So I do have Luke Knox making that semifinals. But let's not forget that everybody's chasing Maddox Shaw here, right? Maddox Shaw is a step above. I don't care if that first matchup with Petrovich and the Whippeal was 1-0. no one's touching Maddox Shaw. Like no one in this bracket has the ability to beat him. This is a lot different than like when Colin Guy was wrestling Mac Church, where I kind of, a lot of people did as well, thought that Colin Guy was going to knock off Mac Church. I don't see anybody here knocking off Maddox Shaw. Like he's just in a different mindset. Now, being that said, Shaw's going to have a tough road. Should Dennis be there? Dennis is a tough out. Knox is dangerous if he's the one that's there. But ultimately, it's Maddox Shaw. The bottom half, I really like that Petrovic-Carroll match to be the one to make the finals. And that's not taking anything away from James Whitbread or Cade Campbell, because Whitbread obviously proved that he's capable of it. He's had a shortened season. He was injured after King of Mountain, was off for a very long time, was able to come back and be pretty darn good, right? I think him and Cade Campbell could be a really close one, because Cade Campbell also is somebody who is battling a little bit of injuries. But I just think Petrovic, look, he finished third last year in Hershey. He knows what to do, and I think he'll be okay. I have him coming out of the bottom half, beating Carroll in the quarters, and then beating Whitbread in a rematch in the semifinals to make the finals against Maddox Shaw, with Maddox Shaw winning that. Guys, it's almost 11 o'clock. Can we put a pin in this and come back tomorrow? Is that a thing?
I think it is. Yeah.
Mitch, can you do tomorrow?
Yeah, I should be able to do that.
Joe,
I'm game.
My son's gonna get me up, and he woke me up at 5:55 this morning, pretending to be a T-Rex, and he also was pretending to put dinosaur poop on me, and I just have a feeling that's probably going to happen again, and I'd like to get some sleep. So I hate to leave I think we have like 700 people watching live right now, which is pretty awesome, but I'd like to put a pin in this and come back tomorrow where I'm fresher. Is that okay, Mitch? Mitch, you look a little disturbed by that. Do you want to power through?
No, if you wanted to power through, I'm good to power through. I'm just saying, whatever you need to do.
Greg, what do you think?
I'm in the same boat as you. We do have another class still to talk about as well, Jeff. So,
Joe, what are you in? I'll power through. Look, I'll power through if you guys want to power through.
I'll do what's best for the greater good. I'm available tomorrow.
But we still have to do double A. So let's keep going. Let's see. It's third period. You're down by 2. Got to get that takedown. All right, let's go. 160. Did we already make picks for 152?
Let me throw this out really quick in regards to 152, because Joe mentioned the depth with the southeast, but the west also is pretty deep too, because you had Cole Doppelauer, state qualifier, didn't make it. You had Cole Gibbons, Mount Lebanon, state qualifier, didn't make it. Luke Dunlap, state qualifier, didn't make it. Also, interesting fact, Bellefonte had 5 wrestlers in the 5th, 6th place match. Only one made it through, and that was Ezra Swisher. So only one state qualifier for Bellefonte. They had 5 chances. So although great that Swisher made it through, definitely a tough day. But overall, I think the quarterfinals are going to be fun to watch in this weight class. But I like Shaw to win it. I like Knox to be in the semi, but I think he's going to wrestle Darius McMillan. And I think Knox and McMillan, but I don't know much about Knox, but based on what you guys are telling me, I think it's going to be a really fun match because McMillan has the same kind of style. I like Campbell in the semis, but Petrovic to be in the final against Shaw.
All right, let's go. Power through.
160, Colin Guy of Quakertown, the Southeast champ number 1. Luke Sipes of the West champ number 2. Christian Bird of Hershey, the South Central champ number 3. Charlie Scanlon of Bethlehem Catholic, your number 4.
I hate to feel like this is a coronation for Colin Guy, because Luke Sipes is a 3-time state medalist. He's going to UNC. Like, Luke Sipes is really freaking good. But I mean, Colin Guy is he's just so damn good, right? I don't know if he's ready to have anybody try to take that throne from him. But I will say this: 160 is deep. Charlie Scanlon, Christian Bird. I really like Christian Bird. Let's not forget Keegan Ramsey was 3rd in the state last year, albeit in AA. this is still a really good weight class when you look at the amount of state medalists and state qualifiers here. But Colin Guy and Luke Sipes have been number 1 and 2 for basically all year. I just don't think anyone has what it takes to knock either one of them off. But Mitch, I'll start with you. Charlie Scanlon, he's just workmanlike.
He really is, and like it's, I don't. Sometimes it's boring to watch, because he's just getting after it. He's doing what he needs to do. It's not flashy, but he's strong. He's always in good position, and he just gets the job done, And he's been at the state tournament 2 times already. Hasn't walked away with a medal yet, and I think he understands that this is his last shot at it, and he's just doing what he needs to do to get through it. I thought it was an impressive performance last week, even though he was the favorite to win that bracket. He had wrestled Jesse Scott, I believe, the week before in a tight match, and scored early, scored off, and there in the regional final, and made it a 10-4 win. I just like what he does. He's just, like you said, very workmanlike in what he does. I think that's a good spot for him in the bracket. Lonzie Vilma should be an interesting matchup there, maybe in the quarterfinals. Obviously a lot to deal with in Colin Guy if he gets to the semifinals there. Luke Sipes is got an opportunity to make history for Altoona. Altoona's never had a 4-time medalist, so he's got an opportunity to do that. For them there, but like everybody, I think it's a collision course. It's Colin Guy, it's Luke Sipes. I think we're going to see those 2 in the finals.
What say you, Joe?
Agree with Mitch on the collision course. And I can speak to, John Smith, who's a sophomore. He's 41-4 for the Oxford area Hornets. He would have been he was a state qualifier last year. Did not compete because of a pulled hamstring that happened at regionals. And the other one who didn't compete was AJ Corp, another talented sophomore from the southeast, from Westchester Ruston. There's like some levels to these 3 guys, but they're all in the top 8 in the state. Colin Guy is in a class of his own, statewide, not just in his own region. Then you have John Smith, who's pretty good in his own right, and AJ Corp. AJ Corp and Ben Brillhart had an absolute all-out war for 3rd and 4th. It was stopped because of some bleeding going on by Brillhart. A lot of heavy hands, exchanged. And that match was an injury default in favor of AJ Corp. But I think this is a weight class where District 1 will put 3 guys on the podium. Do you want me to just go ahead with my pick too?
Yeah, let's go.
Expedite this. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit it all. I got Colin Guy in the semis. He will see Scanlon there in the semifinals rather. I'm sorry. Like what Mitch said about Scanlon being workmanlike, almost boring. Colin Guy scores in bunches. And I guess this is gonna sound bad. It's almost like for me, being able to watch him throughout his career, it's almost an expectation now. And he's just like Mutarelli, I talked about Don Morrison. He's just a guy who just makes it look incredibly easy. It doesn't matter who he's wrestling. He's wrestling John Smith, who's ranked in the top 5 in the state. He made him look pedestrian, and that's no disrespect to John Smith. He's just that good. So I think he makes the final from the top half, and I think he's on a collision course with Luke Sipes. But I think this is this is Colin Guy's year. He's going to finish as a 2-time state champ, his 2nd time finishing undefeated, and put a ribbon on his storybook career for the Quakertown Panthers.
Going back to John Smith, you're right. Like last year was just an unfortunate set of circumstances, but I love that quadrant there with Christian Bird, Rook Smith, Cole Wetzel, John Smith, and Keegan Ramsey. Keegan Ramsey, again, a guy who has not maybe been to the level that he was last year when he finished 3rd in the state, but Christian Bird, he has a win over John Smith. He beat him last year, I believe. Yeah, it was last year he beat him. They didn't hit this year. So I think Christian Bird may be a little bit overlooked a little bit just because Hershey doesn't have maybe the toughest of schedules, but Christian Bird's a returning state qualifier. I really like him, and I think he's going to be in the mix as well. But I agree with you. I think it's a Luke Sipes, Colin Guy collision course. Greg, what did you like about that? About seeing Luke Sipes and what he was able to do to Lonzy Vielma, who's just always feels like he's been around.
Yeah, he dominated, right? I mean, he was 10-3 over Braden White in the semis, 8-1 over Lonzy Vielma in the final. He just was in control of the entire match. And to everybody's point, I think Sipes makes it to the final. I don't see him, I think his path too isn't as tough as Colin Guy's, to be honest with you. If you look at Guy, I mean, he's going to get to the final. He's going to potentially wrestle all the West guys. He's going to wrestle potentially Liam Costa in the opening round, Braden White in the quarters. And I like Lonzy Vielma over Charlie Scanlon. That's going to be a close match. It's going to be a 4-1 type of match. Vielma won actually 5-1 last year against Scanlon in the state tournament. So I think that's going to be – I think Guy's going to wrestle all the West guys to get to the final, and then he'll beat a West guy in the final. And, Sipes gets there, not as tough, like I said, as challenging, and I'm going to say he'll face John Smith just based on what you guys have told me, because I think that's truly, to your point, Jeff, that's a toss-up quadrant right there. Bird, Smith, Ramsey, yes. Rook, Smith. I wouldn't be surprised if any of the four guys I just mentioned there are going to be in that semifinal, but I'll go with John Smith based on the feedback from you guys.
I like the Jesse Scott AJ Corp first round matchup too. I think that's a really good matchup. I let's not sleep on Braden White, guys. Braden White, you haven't heard of him because he hasn't really been wrestling that much. He's been playing football, but he was a really, really good youth wrestler coming up all the way through. Was at Highlands, and then he was at TJ, and he's a big time football player. But of his 8 losses, I think most of them are to Lonzy Vielma and Luke Sipes. I mean, he's lost to each of them twice, if not more than 3. So, Braden White is going to be very, very good. I expect him to finish high on the podium. But I agree with you, Greg. I have Colin Guy beating Lonzy Vielma beating Scanlon like he did last year in Hershey, and then Colin Guy facing Luke Sipes, who I have beating Christian Bird in the semifinals to make the finals.
172, your West champ, Asher Cunningham of State College is number 1. Northeast champ, Brian Hurd of Abington Heights, number 2. Tucker Seidel of the South Central region, West Perry, is number 3. And Oxford area's Blake Hostetter from the Southeast is number 4.
A lot of people before the West region I was talking to, because I was there on Friday because we were streaming the West region before my car decided to quit on me in Bethlehem. A lot of people were saying, I have Marlowe beating Cunningham. I had a lot of people tell me that, and I didn't discount that. I'm like, yeah, that could definitely happen. And then Asher Cunningham came in and was like, nope, I'm not playing around anymore. He tech-falled Mario Hutcherson, and then he tech-falled Marlowe in the finals here in a 1 versus a 2. A very clear, in my opinion, 1 versus 2, because Marlowe has that win over Brian Hurd. And because Gavin Cole has a win over Connor Wetzel, and because Blake Hostetter has a win over Gavin Cole, because Hutcherson has a couple wins over Blake Hostetter, it was a very clear 1 and 2, and he destroyed him 15-0. Greg, what was the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marlowe, in a way, just saw the writing on the wall towards the end of the match, and he gave up a takedown. Then he gave up 8 near fall points. He got tilted twice for the tech fall right at the 6-minute mark. So to me, I mean, he put on 11 points in the third period, but it was a battle in the first period, right? He got the opening takedown, led 3-0 after 1. Cunningham got an escape and another takedown in the second. But at the end of the day, Marlowe decides to go neutral because Cunningham is just so tough on top.
He's so tough on top.
Yeah, that he just decides, hey, I'm not going to get underneath him. I got to get a takedown. Once he got taken down that third time, I think, he was broke, right? It was like, okay, this is Cunningham's. I'm just going to just roll with it. But, yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a little bit of a different match. I do think they meet again, but I don't think it's a tech fall, but I don't see that Marlowe is going to be able to beat Cunningham.
Joe, District 1 here. I mean, Hostetter's just had Cole's number, right? I mean, what is this, 3 times he's beat him now?
Yeah.
It's just
I think four overall. I think he
four
beat him
overall.
last year as well,
Okay,
but 3 times this season. He
but
just
I
had, like
mean,
you said, just has his number.
Cole has a win over Connor Wetzel this year. And Connor Wetzel is a really good wrestler who just took Brian Hurd, who was third in the state, to tiebreaker, right? So, is Hostetter, does he have enough to make it to the semifinals? Is the question. I mean, because I think he has a favorable first couple of matches, but I think that quarterfinal with Connor Wetzel, even though their common opponent Gavin Cole, Wetzel lost to Cole and Hostetter's beat him, I still think that's a really tight match.
Yeah. Again, I can't put my finger on the what Hostetler does that just neutralizes Cole's ability to score. It just he's just 1/2 second quicker to counter anything Cole throws at him. Um, I would say I don't know that this is Hostetter's first time. I don't know that Hostetter, how he's going to react here at Hershey. Wetzel obviously has definitely has the pedigree
I
and
mean, Wetzel was
the
fourth in the state last year, right?
right.
Wetzel, I mean,
He's not the bright lights at Hershey Park or the Giant Center don't scare him whatsoever.
right.
So it'd be interesting to see how Hostetler reacts to that. I'm gonna say that Wetzel wins based on just his experience and makes it a semi, and then obviously he's gonna run into Asher Cunningham, and I think we all know how that's gonna go. When Asher Cunningham's on, it is he's fun to watch. He smothers you in all aspects. From neutral position, heavy hands. On top, he is as tough as
He's
they
like
get.
his dad. Yeah, he just
Yeah,
smothers you. You
right.
know, your boy Gavin Cole did not get a favorable first round matchup. Him versus
No,
Mario
no.
Hutcherson is going to be a really good match. Greg, what have you noticed about Mario Hutcherson? Because of his 4 losses, they're all to either Cunningham or Marlowe, right? Or he doesn't have any other losses.
Well, he's got one to Marlowe and one to Cunningham, but the other two are
Two were
the
defaults
default to
from
Powerade.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but Mario Hutcherson is so impressive, right? When he didn't wrestle one of those two, he's done in the first period. He's so quick. He's elusive.
Savvy.
He's very savvy. I think the one thing he's lacking to help beat the guys like Cunningham and Marlowe is that upper body strength. And what I mean by that, he's in on a takedown against Cunningham, would have been up 3-0, and instead of taking the points, he goes up for the head for a cradle. And good luck trying to get that head down from Asher Cunningham to get that cradle in. And he lost the leg, right? And if he just finishes his shot, he gets the opening takedown on Asher Cunningham. So he's very quick and can move fast. And to me, if he had that little more upper body strength, which he's going to get, right, and that's what's going to separate, he's going to be a multi-time state champion. But I think that's where that's a little bit of a difference between him and like the Cunninghams and Marlows.
I mean, that bottom quadrant, you have Cole, Hutcherson, and Hurd, which Hurd is 3, Hutcherson's 5, Cole's 7. Right, so that's a really damn good quadrant there. Mitch, Brian Hurd had to go the distance with Wetzel. What was his reaction after winning that? And Brian Hurd's been one of my favorite wrestlers. Let's not forget Brian Hurd beat Hutcherson at True Power. Again, a long time ago, but it was a very good win for him.
I think anybody who's talked to Brian Hurd know he doesn't show a whole lot of emotion.
He doesn't talk a whole lot.
Whether it's
doesn't show a lot of
or
emotion.
lost. No. I mean, he's just confident. But the thing that I found interesting was he smiled through the entire interview when I talked to him. Like, he knew the value of winning that match against Connor Wetzel. Wetzel's finally healthy. Like, he's been banged up a little bit this year. Didn't get some great early season results against some returning state qualifier types. He's finally healthy, and those two put together a really good match. Hurd got the escape in the first tiebreaker and then rode out Wetzel in the second tiebreaker to get the 2-1 win. I think it was. This is a guy who just set the Abington Heights school record for wins at 170, topping 2-time state champ Evan Craig. This guy's been a fixture for 4 years. He's been good for 4 years. He finally got onto the podium last year. I think finished fifth or fourth, something like that. And he's a developed, he's a put together senior, and that's where I'm real interested to see if he gets the opportunity to wrestle Hutcherson, because I think that's where Mario Hutcherson has maybe struggled a little bit. We're just some older guys, stronger guys, a little more physically developed. So I want to see how that match plays out if those two get the chance to go at it. I still think it's Bodie Marlowe coming out of that bottom half of the bracket. There, I like where Connor Wetzel is. He had a really good District 4 tournament. I thought he wrestled really well last week, even though he took the loss there. I think there's an opportunity for him to see Asher Cunningham in the finals. But again, I think it's Asher Cunningham's to lose. The jumps he's made over the last 2 years are just they're so much fun to watch. It's unbelievable to see how much he's grown over the last 2 years.
Outside of the guys who were injured or are freshmen, there's 6 returning state medals here, including state champion Asher Cunningham. So you have Cunningham was first, Marlowe was third. You have 2 fourths. We haven't mentioned Shane McFillin. He was 4th in the state last year. Connor Wetzel was 4th in the state. Cole was 8th in the state. Now, Hutcherson has beaten Hostetter in freestyle a couple times. In fact, they wrestled in Fargo this year. Hurd lost to Marlowe at the Midwinter Mayhem. He was up 11-1 on Marlowe at one point, and then Marlowe stormed back after getting kicked in the nuts. He came all the way back to win like 22-12 or something like that. Brian Hurd beat Mario Hutcherson at our own event, True Power, in a good match. We have none of us have mentioned Tucker Seidel, other than Greg when he entered us. Tucker Seidel from West Perry, 38-2, a regional champion, a state qualifier last year in AA, and we haven't really mentioned him. I think that just shows you how much depth there is. I do like Marlowe coming out in the bottom half. I have him wrestling Brian Hurd in a rematch. I have Hurd beating Hutcherson. I have Hutcherson beating Cole. And I have Hurd and Marlowe wrestling, Marlowe winning that. And then I have Cunningham beating Connor Wetzel. I have Wetzel beating Hostetter. That goes against my rankings, but I think the experience part of that, and I think Connor Wetzel just he can find a way to win that one. And then obviously Cunningham beating Marlowe, but not 15-0 like it was last week. Joe, do you have anything to add? No, you don't. You're good. Power for 3, right? Let's go. Power on. Everyone gave their picks, right? Everyone gave their picks.
I think so.
Joe, you gave yours?
I alluded to it. I think Asher Cunningham wins. And then coming out of the bottom half, I think it's gonna be Bodie Marlowe is gonna survive that bottom half, beating Seidel and then beating Hurd to get to the final.
All right, let's keep it going.
189-pound South Central champ Tyler Morrison of West Perry, number 1. Braden Zucher of Nazareth, the Northeast champ, number 2. Brandon Carr of Sun Valley, Southeast champ, number 3. And the West champ, Kendall Hoare of DuBois, number 4.
Kendall Hoare, Greg, had a hell of a weekend, right? What'd you think of that match that he had with Arand in the finals?
Yeah, it's just very workmanlike, right? I mean, he gets it done, gets the takedown, in the overtime period, and they battled it out. Obviously it was one of those, like, he gave up an escape, but a third period he got a reversal. Then he ended up giving up escape with just 15 seconds left, and he's a very workmanlike wrestler. He's never in danger. Like, he's comfortable. He's not like a guy who's going to panic at all. And, it's rare to see at a guy as a freshman at 189 pounds, but right. He's tough.
Joe, the Southeast, pretty damn good here. Brandon Carr, another one who was on our True Power card and got a win there over Braden Welsh. He's number 2 in the state currently. He's a 2-time state qualifier, has yet to get to the medal stand. What did you like about him? And my boy, who my boy is here. So
yes, we'll talk about Franco in a little bit, but this was a weight class that was Brandon Carr's to lose going into it. He has yet, as you mentioned, to get to the podium. This year he does it. I think he makes the semifinals. And then, the match, with him and Zerker is who I think his opponent will be in that semifinal. And I'm gonna say Brandon Carr makes the state final. For Sun Valley, he's wrestling for a little bit more. For those that don't know, Brandon Carr's coach, longtime coach at Sun Valley, Tommy Ellis, unfortunately passed away in the offseason back in July via brain aneurysm. Suddenly, just 43 years old, and one of his tried and true things that he always talked about was to stay gold, and I think Brandon Carr's got gold on his mind. With that being said, I don't think he wins gold. I think Ty Morrison is just a slight level above. But I do hope that Brandon watches this and then proves me wrong. Also in District 1, Carter Euchre, who was eighth in the state last year as a junior from Perk Valley. Perk Valley has some high-end talent. Carter Euchre, Luke Knox, and then Max Tansini. I'm going to go on a limb and say all three get to the podium this year. I think Carter Euchre makes his way back. I said and when we did the broadcast on PAWrestling.com for the regional final, Carter Euchre has this uncanny way to make guys wrestle his match. It doesn't matter what you want to do. He does a really good job of controlling things and slowing the match down to what his pace is. He did it to Franco Latore, who I thought Franco was going to beat him in the semis. Euchre grinded out a 4-1 win. Latore came back and won, took third. Had a win over Paxton Hunt, who
another returning state qualifier.
Yes, and Latore beat Spielman in the Conti semis, who's a returning state medalist from Strathaven. So there's there's some guys here that could get on the podium. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that 3 guys from District 1 get on the podium. I think Latore is poised to get his first state medal, Euchre to get his second, and Brandon Carr to get his first. And he ends his career as a silver medalist for the Sun Valley Vanguards.
Listen, District 1 is they're well represented here. There's no doubt about that. But I will say this, Greg, the West just went bonkers because the WIPIAL was completely different than what ended up in the West, right? Mark Gray wrestled outside of his mind at the West. If Mark Gray can wrestle like he did in the West Regional, he has a very good chance to make the finals, in my opinion. Mark Gray is a guy who has been on the medal stand before, has faced a series of injuries in his career, but he looked really damn good in the West region.
Yeah, it's all about his health. He's been banged up quite a bit. Coach Eater mentioned, dealing with some different issues. And when you see him, he's bandaged all up, right? He's got a shoulder brace, a knee brace. I mean, the guy is battled. But he majors Hunter Snyder, who was at one time one of the top 3 guys in the rankings.
Yep.
This in particular quadrant, I know, Joe, you just mentioned how much you love Brandon Carr, but he's going to have potentially Jake Stevenson, who won the WPL championship just 2 weekends ago. Then you got Blaze Idol there as well, who's a very tough out. Mark Gray too. I mean, I think I could see any one of those 4 guys getting to the semifinals. It's that quadrant right there is going to be so much fun to watch.
And you have 2 guys here that moved up in weights. Blaze Idol moved up from 72. Domson Pollock moved up from 172. Now, Domson Pollock is the interesting one to me because last year he was a state medalist in AA. Now, he and Ty Morrison have wrestled twice in their careers, both last year. Excuse me. Morrison won 4-0 the first time and won 2-0 in sudden victory the last time, right? Yes, I agree. Morrison has been sort of the head of the class here, but look at this first round matchup. Ty Morrison versus Hunter Snyder in the first round. I mean, those two at one point were number 1 and number 2 in the state. In fact, they were 1 and 2 in the state for majority of the season, 75% of the season. So that to me is just insane that they're going to be wrestling that early. But Snyder had 2 not really good weeks of the postseason. Carter Euchre, as you mentioned, I think him and Lineker could be a good match, but I think the winner of Morrison and Snyder is the one to make it to the semifinals. And I think that top half is just loaded with Spielman being a returning state medalist, some Pollock being a returning state medalist, Kendall Orr being one of the top freshmen in the state. Carter Euchre, another returning or one-time state qualifier. So this to me is just a crazy weight class. And I like this weight class. So I have it 45, 33, 89, because 89 is so wide open. Mitch, what say you? And Sampolik and Zurcher are just, they've gotten closer over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they really have. And this feels like a weight class where, Jeff, like anybody in the top 5 of your rankings, it feels like they could win this tournament.
Yes.
It feels wide open. There's no one particular favorite. There's no Tahir Parkins type in this one. I think Ty Morrison has proven to be the number 1 guy in the rankings all year. His only losses to Lane Ford from Virginia, who I think is ranked 3rd in the country, and it was a 1-0 match. And my favorite part of that at Trojan Wars was I think Ty was in on 2 or 3 different shots and just couldn't finish. Super heavy hips from Lane Ford and couldn't finish. And to see how upset Ty Morrison was that I couldn't finish one of those shots, it kind of showed me where he is and what he believes he's capable of. But that first match, if he gets Hunter Snyder in that first match, Hunter Snyder was kind of the belle of the ball last year at the state tournament, pulled an upset early as a freshman. I think whoever wins that match has a good chance to come out of the top half of this bracket. I like what Dom Sampolik has done since going up to 189. I worry about him getting a full 189 guy, just how he's going to adjust to that.
Like Brandon Carr is a full-size 189. Brandon Carr is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of where I worry about with him. I can't wait to see what Kendall Lohr can do on this stage against the same types, against some just physically mature individuals in this weight class. I love the first round matchup, Avery Allred, Abdullah Kala down in the bottom half of the bracket. Those guys wrestled earlier this year to a tiebreaker. Akala's a returning state qualifier as well. Braden Zurcher, I think, is finally healthy as well, and he's just getting comfortable in this weight class. So it's an interesting weight, just because I think there's 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys who could potentially win this.
Yeah, and if you look at it, like you said, Lane Ford is currently number 3 in the state, 1 behind Adam Waters, and Ty Morrison lost him 1-0 at the Trojan Wars, and Ty Morrison was also a Super 32 medalist, and he's nationally ranked. So I agree, he is the favorite here. All right, let's go picks. Joe, what do you got?
I got Ty Morrison, and
who do you have him beating in the semifinals?
What's that?
Who do you have him beat in the semifinals? I'm assuming Franco.
Kendall Hoare. I can't go. I can't put Franco there. I know that. That's probably your pick.
That's my boy.
But he is. He'll be rocking the cowboy hat all weekend in Hershey probably. I got Morrison beating Hoare in the semi up top, and then I'm gonna stick with Brandon Carr and Zurcher in the bottom half, Carr winning and Morrison beating Carr for the state championship.
Greg?
I'm gonna go Morrison to make it to the final over Kendall Hoare. I'm having a tough time with this quadrant right now, Jeff, with Carr, Gray, Idle,
I know.
Stevenson. I'm going to go Mark Gray just because I think if he's healthy, which, he bounced back and had a really strong weekend, I like him to get to the semi. Bottom half, again, another tough one. I like Avery Aranda. I think he wrestled really tough and definitely was one of those guys that, outside of that match against Hoare, he was in battling throughout the entire time, and that sets up an interesting semifinal. Just because I want to make sure we're staying on the right side of Coach Heater, I'm going to go Mark Gray in the final with Morrison winning it.
You got everyone's scared of of Coach Heater, Chris Heater.
That's right.
So I mean, terrifying. Mitch,
I like Ty Morrison in the top half. Yeah, just because he's kind of been the staple of consistency all year in this. I think he gets Kendall Lohr in the semifinals, and that makes me really feel old. I think Kendall Lohr's uncle is Chad Orr, who was a national qualifier at Bloom University 20 years ago, maybe, and I covered Chad when he was in college, so it just makes me feel really old.
Yeah, because Tim Rice knows him. Yeah, they were. Yeah, you are old.
Yeah,
at least you're not 50 like me.
No. I'm with Joe though. I like Brandon Carr against Braden Zurcher in the semis on the bottom half with Carr coming out. And again, just Morrison's been the staple of consistency. I think he gets gold this year.
Yeah, I'll stay with the other company here. I'll say Morrison's going to beat Kendall Orr in the semifinals. I think Carr is going to beat Zurcher in the other one, and ultimately Ty Morrison getting the job done. But to be honest with you, that low confidence, right? There's a lot of guys here who end up winning this and doing very well. Because it's you got to put together a lot of wins here, a lot of string. There's no easy quadrant to sum it up.
215 pounds, the West champ Elijah Brown of Bell Vernon sits at the top. Brody Rebuck of Shikellamy, the Northeast champ, number 2. South Central champ Brody Doherty of Manheim Central, number 3. And the Southeast champ Walker Murray of Pennsbury, number 4.
Joe, I hate to do it to you, bud, but man, Decker Bechtold has a very, very tough first-round matchup with Rowan Thompson. The West is absolutely dominating here at 215 pounds. For basically all season, we've had the West just owning the top 4 spots. Elijah Brown's 1, Roskowski's 2, Thompson is 3, Conroy is 4. Now, Elijah Brown, everyone should know, he won Fargo this past year. Last year was a state qualifier in AA. Now they're up to AAA. He's beaten Roskowski in two times in the last 2 weeks. He's also has a win over Jake Conroy. That's his only loss on the season is to Jake Conroy. I think Elijah Brown is definitely peaking. But Joe, Walker Murray, man, tell us, give us a scoop on Walker Murray, because we don't hear a lot about Pennsbury. But I'll tell you what, Walker Murray has made a name for himself.
Certainly. I bet against him last week. Big mistake. He made your decision, Decker Bechtold, in the final, 10-0. He bonus pointed his way to a regional title. For guys never made the states, has just having a really great senior season. I'm not ready to start picking him now that we're at Hershey. Jake Conroy is who's going to probably see in that round of 16. That's a terrible matchup for
that's
anyone.
4 versus a 5 in the state. That is a number 4 Jake Conroy versus number 5 Walker Murray in the round of 16.
Right. And I don't think Murray's wrestled someone that's gonna push him the way Conroy will. For as great as is, Walker Murray, shout out to him going to Villanova, middle linebacker. He was a Sportsman of the Year in District 1. Award given out as well. He won that. He was awarded with that before the final started. So just an all-around great kid. But Conroy's just a match that no one wants in that round of 16, let alone another regional champ. Like you said, Elijah Brown is the real deal. Also coming out of Decker Bechtold's first round matchup again. Brutal, and if he manages to survive that, he's looking at Brody Rebuck. So I mean, it's just there's pitfalls everywhere in this weight class. It's really going to be tough for anyone in this Southeast region. I think maybe they can get one guy in the podium. If I'm being honest with everyone, I think
I think you're being a little bit disrespectful, to be honest with you. I think they can get 2.
Okay, I was trying to be realistic.
I think Decker can find a way in, and I think Walker should look. I mean, Walker has wins over 2 regional champions here this year at the Cumberland Valley Kickoff, which is where I saw him, and I was like, and I think I told you, I think I texted you right after the Cumberland Valley Kickoff, and I said Walker Murray is the real deal, or something like that. I probably said something a lot stupider, but if you look at this, he beat Brody Rebuck 6-4. Then he beat Doherty 3-1. He lost to Lucas Lawler 12-6. That's his only loss, is to Lucas Lawler, who's number 2 in the state in AA. He lost to him 12-6. So he beat 2 regional champions here. I'd say he has to get on the podium. I don't see a way around it. It's just that he is in a really tough first round of 16 matchup with Jake Conroy, who is a Fargo All-American headed to Cornell, and oh, by the way, a returning state 4th place finisher. So there's that. Mitch, what did you take away from Brady Rebuck getting that championship for Shikellamy, beating Connor Smalley from Notre Dame?
I've been really impressed the last 2 weeks with Brody Rebuck. I mean, just the way he wrestles. I know his only loss this year was down at the Cumberland Valley tournament to Walker Murray. Like you said, 6-4. He's won 35 in a row. He's just good. I mean, he got a test from John Boggs in the semifinals, 11-10, and it was
John
one
Boggs
of
is
those
also
things where
under the radar.
yeah, and I think he won that match and was like, all right, I'm good now. Like breathe a sigh of relief and go through it. I went back and looked because I think anybody knows the Shikellamy program has had great history throughout its program's history. He was the first Northeast regional champion for Shikellamy since 2003. Now, granted, 10 of those years they were wrestling out of the Northwest, but Mike Sees was the last Northeast region champ for Shikellamy. It blew my mind because of how good that program has been over the years. But I think he's kind of worthy of being that next guy. That's a really interesting second round matchup, quarterfinal matchup with whoever comes out of that, Thompson or Bechtold out of there. But I like where Brody Rebuck is right now. I think Connor Smalley's like in the middle of just a really tough quadrant up there, but he wrestled well. A guy I would keep an eye on, I don't know, probably more on the backside. I like Lincoln Bibla at Crestwood. Just a really put together kid. And if you've never seen his dad played offensive guard and was an All-American on the Miami football teams with like Ken Dorsey that were really good in the early 2000s.
Martin Bibla.
Yeah, Martin Bibla. It's a great family. It's a great athletic family. They've had great success there. So I'd keep an eye on Lincoln Bibla maybe on the backside of things.
Greg, the West region is just, I mean, we talked about how dominant they have been, but I mean, this region, I think those four guys could honestly, all of them could win it. Roskoski was very close. What was the key in this time around against Brown and Roskoski? Because there's only one.
I think the key is that nobody wants to go underneath of Brown. Brown is so tough on top. Roskoski knows it. He has to choose neutral. Couldn't get a takedown on Brown, and that's why he loses the match. And really, over the last 2 weeks, we'll see if it takes form here in the third and final week. But even you can go back to the sections as well. But there's a pretty clear top four, in my opinion. It's Brown, it's Roskoski, then it's Thompson, and then it's Conroy. And how I see it shaking up is Brown against Conroy in one semi, and Roskoski and Thompson in the other, and Brown and Roskoski going at it one more time with Brown winning a state title. I just don't see it going any other way, to be honest. I mean, these four have just been so dominant. And it's even worth mentioning the WPL also had the fifth as well, Braden Collins of Canamac, only a sophomore. He's gotten better each week, and, his losses are to those four guys. Yep. So I think he's going to be a challenge even for, Brody Rebuck, you mentioned him, Mitch, 41-1 on the year, but I think Braden Collins is going to at least give him a match. And I also think that Braden Collins could make some noise in the consolations as well. So the West will fare well here.
And he's an undersized 215 too.
Correct.
I will say this, when you look at where Roman Thompson's been the last 2 weeks, beating Jake Conroy, like, it was not a fluke that first time at the Whippeal, right? I think a lot of people kind of said, Conroy lost a tough semifinal match, he dropped down and his mind wasn't right. Roman Thompson beat him twice, right? I think Roman Thompson has a very serious chance to make the semifinals. I think he, Rebuck is, I tend to feel like Rebuck will find a way to win this, but after watching him almost lose to John Boggs, it kind of made me realize that Roman Thompson's just been really, really consistent. I have Brown beating Boggs. I have Walker Murray losing to Jake Conroy, and then Conroy losing to Elijah Brown, and I have it all West. Roskoski and Thompson, with Roskoski winning that. Mitch, what do you got? Or did you already give us yours?
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you guys. I think it's an all West semifinals there, with Elijah Brown coming out in the end. I mean, like that's a kid carrying so much confidence. I don't know what making that run at Fargo did for him mentally.
It did a lot, because he finished fourth in the state in the Pennsylvania Freestyle State Championship, fourth. Then he goes and wins the whole damn thing. That's like finishing fourth in your section and then going and winning the state title. Like, that's pretty impressive. I'm sorry to cut you off,
Do-
Mitch.
No, it's
Joe,
all right.
did,
I'm
Joe,
used to
did
it.
Joe, did you give us your pick, Joe?
I didn't give picks. I just spoke to the gang. I
Walker Murray
I
all the
can't
way.
disagree. No, no, no. Sorry, Walker.
Don't put
I
it
think you
past
get on the
Walker.
podium.
Could very much make the semifinals. He can wrestle with the best.
Yeah, he can. But I'm gonna go all West semi, and I'm gonna go with a guy who's tough on top. Because he's gonna have an opportunity to put himself there if need be, and I'm gonna go Elijah Brown to win a state title.
285 pounds. The Southeast champ, Dean Bechtold of Owen J. Roberts, is your number one. Northeast champ, Maxwell Roy of St. Joe's Prep, number two. Shepherd Turk of Thomas Jefferson, the West champ, number three. And the South Central champ, Gunnar Hiller of Cedar Cliff, number four.
All right. Dom Petroselli told me, Joe, Dean Bechtold, next topic. Going to bed. Going to bed. Dean Bechtold. That's all you got to say. In terms of confidence pick, I mean, Dean's there's no one that's going to touch Dean, including Max Roy. I don't think Dean's going to wrestle. I don't think Dean will wrestle full 6 minutes at any point during Hershey.
I'll put out there. I think he could not leave the first period in Hershey.
Whew. Mitch,
in every match.
What do you think? Mitch is a Max Roy fan.
I am a big Max Roy fan, and that's been 2-3 years running now since I saw him at Northeast Regional 2 or 3 years ago. He's had the misfortune of running into Sean Kinney down at the regional tournament each of the last 2 years. But dude's big, dude's athletic. I mean, he's going to play defensive line at Ohio State. He is coming off a knee injury that caused him to miss the entire football season, but he looks athletic, he looks quick, he looks strong. It doesn't look like there's any ill effects from the knee injury at all. Like, I like where he is. I don't think he's going to beat Dean Bechtold, but I'd be a little surprised if he's not in the state final.
You think he can beat? So we have the interesting storyline here is, Greg, we have two Division I football players that are likely going to wrestle in the semifinals. Max Roy going to Ohio State, Shep Turk going to Pitt, right? I think there's a clear three here with Bechtold, Roy, and Turk, and I think Roy and Turk can kind of be interchangeable. They were both in the same bracket last year. Roy ended up being a state medalist last year at sixth. I just think Dean Bechtold was on a different playing field than the rest of them. I mean, he's a Super 32 champion. He beat Mako, right? I mean, come on. Like, he's definitely the guy. The question for me is, who's he going to get, right? Can Schiffert from Freedom make it out to the semifinals, or Gunnar Hiller, who has been wrestling well as of late? Cam Dana from West Allegheny, he's also been wrestling well. I think the bottom half is just, it's only Max Roy and Shep Turk. I can't see anybody else making a run for it. What do you think, Greg? You got to see these guys all this past weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that Shep Turk Max Roy match is going to be fantastic to see. Sneaky first round matchup for Shep Turk, Jack Peters, Selinsgrove sitting in the pigtail round. That could be an interesting match, but I agree. I think Turk and Roy in the final. I'm going to go Turk just because I got to stick with my West side here, but that's a true coin flip match. Bechtold wins it, in my opinion. I think he does get out of the first period, Joe, but in the final, I think, he could definitely win every match in the first period up till that point. And the semifinal, a guy that I've been actually surprised, thought he's wrestled really well is Philip Rierick in the WPIAA as well as the region. And I could see him making it to the semifinal. I think that's a quadrant that's, like you said, a toss-up. A number of guys could get there, but I think Philip Rierick of Armstrong is that semifinalist against Bechtold.
When Rierick has gas in the tank, he's very, very good, right? His worst part is if him running out of gas. Other than that, he's been wrestling very, very well. I would agree with you. Mitch, did I already get you? Where I talk to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's Dean Bechtold's to lose.
Are you picking Max Roy to be in the finals?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I was really impressed. I'll tell you this, Jack Peters got banged up last week from Selinsgrove. I think he forfeited his final match and was limping a little bit at the end of the week. So I'll be curious to see how he goes, because he's a bracket buster on the backside if he's healthy and ready to go.
Joseph?
Well, I'd like to just go on record. Obviously, Max Roy should be in the Southeast region. He shouldn't be in the Northeast region, if we're being, geographically speaking.
Yeah,
But
District 8 should have been in the WPIAL and the Southwest region for how many years, and they went to freaking the Northwest region. So I agree
like
with
they
you.
shipped the Philly schools up to the Northeast region instead of 25 minutes to the
awful.
West. But I digress. So we would have been able to see that Max Roy match earlier if that were geographically we were doing the right by everyone. Anyway, I have the Bechtold winning it. Bechtold, I'm going to say against Thomas Roy. That's the matchup everyone wants to see. With the Ohio State defensive line commit, I think that it's hard to pick the rest of that bottom or that top half of that bracket as far as semifinals go.
It really is. It really is.
You know what I mean? Like everyone's kind of there's definitely, like we talked about in the other weight class, there's levels to what there is in these brackets, and you have your top end talent, which like it seems Bechtold, Turk, and Roy are the class of the weight class, and then you can literally any one of those other wrestlers, just way heavyweight happens, anyone else can get there. So I'm gonna go with the District 7 guy out of Armstrong, Philip Rurik, to make the semis, with Bechtold beating him, and then Turk and Roy, with Roy beating Turk. So
Okay.
I do want to give a special shout out another guy from District 1, Cam Montgomery.
I knew you were gonna go there.
Yeah, I gotta give these guys some credit. Another guy picked it up as a sophomore. You look at him and you're like, oh, like, I don't know the story, and just speculative, like, oh, he's like 6'4", 6'5". He's got long arms, and he can cradle you from anywhere on top. And you're like, oh, he's a basketball player, and he gets his hands on you, and it's trouble. So he's a pinner. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. Apologize if I do,
It's
but
heavyweight. Everybody's a pinner.
right. But seeing a heavyweight slap on a crossface cradle is
Sure.
not something you see all the time. So that's what makes him unique and different, and the fact he's like a second year wrestler. So to make it out of to make the state tournament and win 36 matches in just your second year or third year is pretty impressive.
I agree. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, my picks. Dean Bechtold, I have winning, and I have actually him beating Philip Rurik too. So I have Philip Rurik in the semifinals. On the bottom half, I have Shep Turk versus Max Roy. I have Shep Turk winning that, and I have Dean Bechtold beating Shep Turk.
Well, guys, that was fun. Almost 3 hours of wrestling talk.
We get to do it all again tomorrow, double A. Let's go.
Should be a lot of fun. We appreciate everyone who has been watching and listening in to the Power Hour times 3 Power Hour, 3 hours.
We did 3 Power Hours. I'm wasted.
That's right, for the four horsemen, right?
Yes,
but we appreciate everybody's time and watching and listening to us, and we're looking forward to the AAA state tournament. But I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll look forward to continue bringing you more wrestling content here on PA Power Wrestling.